Chapter 454. Hearing that Golden Rock Great Sage had grasped a clue to Yuta Netherflower, Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue were both silent. Long Yi continued to say, he used this clue as a basis to research a kind of secret method to make Yuta Netherflower reappear in the world. The exact details aren't clear, but rumors say that he needs to sacrifice 9 strong practitioners of Primordial Spirit Realm, or Undying Demon Soul Realm, to refine Yuta Netherflower. Long Yi turned her head to look at the center of the sea of trees. There, a pillar of colorful light rushed into the sky, and the flames inside the pillar burned fiercely. That's the first one. Before she even finished speaking, another pillar of light rushed into the sky. Long Yi said leisurely, "This is the second one. And shouldn't be that fast. Someone else has been captured." Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue silently looked at the center of the sea of trees in the distance. The second pillar of light quickly changed from gold to 5 colors. And inside the pillar of light, a bundle of flames jumped and lit up, intimidating people's hearts and souls. Maybe it's Celestial Wolf. Lin Feng shrugged his shoulders and answered indifferently. Long Yi also smiled leisurely. It's also possible. Lin Feng turned his head around and looked at Long Yi calmly. Let's not talk about whether he will succeed or not. If he really succeeds, the ones who should be the most nervous should be your master and disciple, right? Heroes rose up in heaven wasteland vast land, and the enchantress's power was the strongest. His aura swallowed the mountains and rivers, and he was considered to have the greatest hope of becoming the next generation of the demon race's sacred emperor. And Golden Rock Great Sage was one of the few great demons that could pose a threat to the enchantress's position. Golden Rock Great Sage had subdued the Qiongqi demon race and gained a huge helping hand. He even obtained a huge killing weapon like 9 Glory Heaven Shattering Formation. So his power had already increased explosively. If he was allowed to grasp Yuta Netherflower again, it wouldn't be long before the situation between him and the enchantress would be flipped. To the human cultivation world, Golden Rock Great Sage's increase in power was no doubt a huge hidden threat, but to the enchantress, this huge threat was no longer hidden, but right in front of him. Long Yi faintly smiled, tilting her head. Yeah, that's why we came. Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue looked at each other. Although they did not speak, they could see the same meaning in each other's eyes. The Long Night Trio entering the Cloud Forest realm this time was not just for the 9 luminaries' heaven-shattering formation. From the beginning, they knew that the Golden Rock Great Sage was also in the Cloud Forest realm. It was just that this way Long Yi, the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, and Lady Umbrella's lineup was obviously not enough. If there were no follow-up arrangements, they would be like sheep entering a tiger's den. Since that was the case, where was the enchantress's backup plan? Lin Feng looked at Long Yi. Then his gaze looked towards the center of the sea of trees where 2 pillars of light had already lit up. The Golden Rock Great Sage stood motionless in the center of the sea of trees. His eyes were slightly closed, as if he was resting. A beam of black light rushed out of the dense forest and landed in front of Golden Rock Great Sage. It was Qiongqi. He opened his mouth and spat out a black ball of light. An old woman in ochre was sitting cross-legged in the ball of light. Golden Rock Great Sage slowly opened his eyes and looked at the old woman in ochre. Lady Umbrella, long time no see. Lady Umbrella, who had transformed into an ochre-robed old woman, smiled and said, Golden Rock Great Sage, long time no see. Golden Rock Great Sage nodded his head lightly and looked at Qiongqi. Thank you. He was not completely being polite. There were many great demons in the Undying Demon Soul realm who could kill Lady Umbrella. However, there were only a few who could capture her alive. Only Qiongqi's gifted remarkable ability, which could corrupt one's magical power and demonic power, could he withstand Lady Umbrella's poison and capture her alive. Lady Umbrella looked at the disc on the ground. Out of the 9 boxes, 7 were empty. The remaining 2 boxes emitted thick pillars of light that shot up into the sky. At the source of the pillars of light, 2 figures were trapped. One of them was Xingdo Dao Master, and the other was dressed in a white monk robe. He was sitting cross-legged with a madra, and his expression was calm but solemn. He was the primordial soul elder of the Tempest Temple, Monk Dade. Monk Dade sat in the center of perfection, and was immobilized by the colorful pillars of light. His eyes were closed, and his hands formed madra. He kept chanting scriptures. Bright lights flashed on his body. After they lit up, they were quickly extinguished by the colorful pillars of light. However, they would soon light up again. Every time the lights lit up, Monk Dade's frail body would suddenly change into the appearance of a golden body Buddha. Beneath him, 8 peacocks were raised. He held a lotus in his right hand and a bell in his left. His expression was emotionless, and his whole body shone brightly with great power. When the lights disappeared, the golden body dissipated, and he became Monk Dade once again. At this time, the level of one's cultivation was completely revealed. There was no way to fake it. Xingdo Dao Master was immobilized by the pillars of light. He fell to the ground, looking dispirited and unable to manifest his primordial soul incarnation. Monk Dade still had room to struggle. He could manifest his golden body of Buddha, but he could only barely defend himself. He was still unable to stop the suppression of the pillars of light. Lady Umbrella sighed. Am I going to face this tribulation too? Golden Rock Great Sage said lightly. If Lady Umbrella is willing to serve me, you will not have to face this tribulation. Otherwise, you can go in and wait with me. After a moment of silence, Lady Umbrella said, I know what Golden Rock Great Sage wants. I wonder if the Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit can exchange for my life? Hearing the name of the Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit, Qiongqi's eyes lit up. The Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit was a treasure that could make the hearts of all primordial soul mighty figures race, not to mention an infinite region. Even in the divine land of the human race. This was because the Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit was rumored to be of great help to primordial soul cultivators when they were breaking through to the next realm, greatly increasing the success rate of breaking through to the next realm. It had the same effect on great sages of the demon race who had cultivated the indestructible demon soul. In fact, it was even more effective than using it on humans. However, the Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit was extremely rare, and had not appeared in the world for a long time. Qiongqi did not even care that Golden Rock Great Sage was beside him. He stared at Lady Umbrella and asked, You are a plant demon. Could it be that the Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit was born from the essence of your own dermic powers? Lady Umbrella did not speak, but her attitude clearly showed that she agreed. Qiongqi turned to look at Golden Rock Great Sage. He looked at Lady Umbrella calmly and said slowly, Even if I give you the Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit, I will not let you go back to Tianmei. Golden Rock Great Sage was already at the 3rd realm of the indestructible demon soul, so he did not need the Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit. However, the members of the Golden Rock race, as well as the experts of the demon race, could all use it. Qiongqi Great Sage was a typical example. He was about to reach the pinnacle of the 2nd realm of the indestructible demon soul. After some accumulation, he would be able to attack the 3rd realm of the indestructible demon soul. However, how difficult was it to reach the 3rd realm of the indestructible demon soul? Countless demons dreamed of it, but those who succeeded were few and far between. Even Qiongqi Great Sage, who was extremely talented and had a strong foundation, did not have much confidence in reaching the 3rd realm of the indestructible demon soul. It was very likely that it would be an illusion for the rest of his life. However, with the help of the Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit, the chances of success would be greatly increased. Golden Rock Great Sage did not mind the people under him getting stronger and stronger. He was worried that they would threaten his position in the future. This was because he was confident that he would become stronger and have the ability to control the experts under him. However, he could not let Lady Umbrella's Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit help the Enchantress's subordinates to become stronger. This had nothing to do with the confidence of an expert. It was the most basic of all, to suppress, weaken and attack one's enemies. Therefore, even if Golden Rock Great Sage did not throw Lady Umbrella into the sacred fire sacrificial rite, he would not let her go even if he captured her alive. Lady Umbrella clearly understood this. She nodded and said, I only hope that I can use the Snow Dew of Fairy Spirit to save my life. She closed her eyes and her appearance changed again. She did not look like a gorgeous lady in red, nor did she look like a middle-aged woman in white. Instead, she changed from an old lady in ochre to a young lady in a yellow dress. This young lady in yellow looked to be about 12 or 13 years old. She was not very beautiful, but she was full of youthful vigor. Lady Umbrella, who had changed her appearance, stood on the spot with her hands behind her back. She closed her eyes and did not move. Waves of fragrance emanated from her body. The fragrance was very faint and not very strong. However, it made one feel very comfortable. Even Golden Rock Great Sage, who had reached the third tier of the indestructible demon soul realm, could feel it. At his level, there were very few spiritual medicines that could be of use. Qiongqi even felt that just by taking a whiff of this fragrance, the faintly discernible door in his sea of consciousness had become clearer. She actually used her own body to form the snow dew of fairy spirit. So the source of the snow dew of fairy spirit is this demon's true form, a spiritual mushroom of heaven and earth. Qiongqi stared at Lady Umbrella. The demonic black light in his eyes flickered like an abyss. Silently, Lady Umbrella, who had transformed into a young lady in a yellow dress, stood on the spot. A snow-white water droplet the size of a thumb gradually formed on her forehead. It looked like a dewdrop. This was the famous sacred medicine of the great Tianyuan world, the snow dew of fairy spirit. After forming the snow dew of fairy spirit, the spiritual energy around Lady Umbrella immediately became thin. This was not because she had used up too much of her demon power, but because her essence had been depleted. The dewdrop left Lady Umbrella's forehead and floated towards Golden Rock Great Sage. She said slowly, "The snow dew of fairy spirit only forms once every 1,000 years. I hope Golden Rock Great Sage will forgive me." Golden Rock Great Sage looked at the snow dew of fairy spirit, but did not take it. With a thought, the snow-white dewdrop floated towards Qiongqi. Qiongqi's eyes flashed. He took the snow dew of fairy spirit without hesitation, and nodded at Golden Rock Great Sage. "Thank you, Emperor Peng, for bestowing this treasure upon me. I'm going to continue hunting. I will definitely bring back all my prey so that Emperor Peng can offer sacrifices to me." He transformed into a black light, and left the center of the forest. Golden Rock Great Sage looked at Lady Umbrella. "Lady Umbrella, are you still not willing to serve me?" Lady Umbrella changed from a young lady in a yellow dress back to an old lady in ochre robes. She sat on the branch of the ancient tree weakly with her legs crossed. She smiled and said, "Heavenly Charm Great Sage has taken care of me for thousands of years. I hope that Golden Rock Great Sage can fulfill this favor." She did not address Golden Rock as Emperor Peng like Tianluan Golden Rock and Qiongqi Great Sage. This was equivalent to expressing her attitude. Golden Rock Great Sage did not force her and only nodded. "It's a pity." White light rose from the branches of the ancient tree and enveloped Lady Umbrella. This was considered as a temporary imprisonment. However, she was not thrown into the round plate like how Xingdou Dao Master and Monk Dade had treated her. In the distant sea of trees, Lin Feng, Long Yi and Yan Mingyue were all looking at the pillar of light in the center of the sea of trees. Lin Feng slowly asked, "Since you are confident that the Golden Rock Great Sage will not use Lady Umbrella as a sacrifice, then there are not enough people. Could it be that the Golden Rock Great Sage wants to use his own subordinates as a sacrifice?" Long Yi shook her head slowly. "He won't do that." Chapter 455. Slowly Long Yi said, "Golden Rock Great Sage is proud and arrogant. He will protect anyone who works for him and won't sacrifice them easily. In that case, what will he do?" Lin Feng looked at Yan Mingyue. Including Lin Feng himself, there were a total of 5 human cultivators who entered Cloud Forest World with him. Long Ye's group had a total of 3 demon race great sages. Other than that, there was also Monk Dade who was tricked here. Adding them all together, there were exactly 9. According to what Long Yi said, Golden Rock Great Sage had to sacrifice 9 strong practitioners of Primordial Spirit Realm, or Undying Demon Soul Realm to obtain Yudu Minghua. There was a carrot and a hole here. If Golden Rock Great Sage let go of Lady Umbrella, who would fill up the empty spot? Furthermore, this was calculated according to the most ideal situation, which was that everyone had to fall into Golden Rock Great Sage's hands and be captured. Otherwise, the gap would be even bigger. Lin Feng pondered for a moment, and he gradually had an outline in his heart. Exactly how many people will enter Cloud Forest World isn't something Golden Rock Great Sage can predict. His method of closing the door and releasing the dogs can only lock up the first batch. The first batch that comes in is just a few. It all depends on luck. Next, we have to lock down Cloud Forest World. Otherwise, Yan Mingyue, Long Yi, and the rest can immediately bring in Taishu Temple, the Enchantress, and the rest. The only exception was Great Thunderclap Monastery's Monk Dade, but that should be a special situation and couldn't be used easily. On one hand, because of Monk Yuan Xiang, Monk Dade would take the bait so easily. They couldn't trick another primordial spirit realm cultivator to come in a short time. On the other hand, after Golden Rock Great Sage refined and controlled the will of the medium-sized world, Lin Feng clearly felt that there was an instant when the power of the White Light Tree Sea weakened. That should be when Golden Rock Great Sage opened a gap and Monk Dade came in. With so many strong practitioners eyeing covetously and trying to break in, this kind of thing was undoubtedly extremely risky. It was very easy to seize the chance to break open the Void Realm. Golden Rock Great Sage could stabilize it once, but he couldn't stabilize the world every time. So including the old monk who came later, we happen to have 9 people. This should be a pleasant surprise for the Golden Rock. Lin Feng thought to himself, if that's the case, he must have prepared a plan to deal with the lack of manpower from the start. Lin Feng even suspected that even if there wasn't a single person, Golden Rock Great Sage would still be able to refine Yu Deming Hua. It was just that the difficulty would be much higher. He would need to pay an unbearable price and an immeasurable amount of time. Hence, everyone entered the Cloud Forest world to send Cole in his hour of need. The Golden Rock Great Sage gladly accepted it. Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue looked at each other, and saw that Yan Mingyue's eyes flashed with understanding. It was obvious that she had the same judgment. Long Yi looked at the two of them and smiled faintly. The two of you, let's part ways here. I received Martial Uncle's sound transmission, and have to hurry over to meet up with him. Lin Feng's pupils slightly contracted. Strictly speaking, Long Yi is of the demon race. After all, there is an additional barrier between him and Yan Mingyue. But right now, everyone could still be considered to be sitting on the same boat. Why was she in such a hurry to get off the boat? Yan Mingyue gently tucked her hair behind her ear, and looked at Long Yi. She said with a smile, "Oh, is Heavenly Wolf Great Sage nearby? If you don't mind, let's go together. Right now, our common enemy is Golden Rock Great Sage. If we split our strength, we will be weaker. If we work together, our chances of victory will be higher." Long Yi said with a smile, "Forget it, big sister Yan is so beautiful, my martial uncle won't be able to resist eating you." Lin Feng burst out laughing. Only now did he remember that no matter if it was in Heaven Wasteland Vast Land or the Divine Land, Heavenly Wolf Great Sage had a bad reputation. People often said pervert, and Heavenly Wolf Great Sage was known as the #1 pervert in Heaven Primordial World. His notorious reputation wasn't any weaker than his bloodthirsty reputation. Yan Mingyue took a look at Long Yi, and also shook her head with a smile. "Aren't you fine?" "That's because I have Master's protection. Otherwise, I would have long been eaten by Martial Uncle." Long Yi lightly raised her eyebrows. "I don't know if I'll be able to return intact after coming out with Martial Uncle this time." The smile on Lin Feng's face disappeared. Silently staring at Long Yi, he suddenly said, "There's no need to worry if I'm dead, right? Perhaps the Golden Rock Great Sage has a way to make up for the lack of people, but without a doubt, the fewer the people, the more difficult it is." Lin Feng said calmly, "That old wolf has something that I very much agree with. Since the Golden Rock Great Sage needs people alive to make up the numbers, then if one of us dies, he'll have one less." Even though Lin Feng's expression was still as calm as the clouds and the wind, both Yan Mingyue and Long Yi could feel a faintly discernible, but heart-chilling killing intent. Lin Feng wasn't joking. At this moment, he really had the intention to kill because Long Yi's behavior was very abnormal. Just as Yan Mingyue said, at this moment, both sides should join hands to fight against the common enemy, the Golden Rock Great Sage. If they were to part ways or even have internal strife, then they should first deal with the threat of the Golden Rock Great Sage. Connecting this to Lady Umbrella's actions of practically giving them away for free, Lin Feng seriously suspected that Long Yi and the others were secretly carrying out an unknown plan. Even though Lin Feng believed that the target of their plan was the Golden Rock Great Sage, but after the plan succeeded, if they had the strength to spare, they would definitely take in Lin Feng and the others as well. Yan Mingyue looked at Lin Feng and Long Yi without saying a word. Silently, she stood beside Lin Feng, the two of them facing Long Yi together. Long Yi turned a blind eye to this and instead leisurely laughed lightly. That's right, sect leader Lin. I almost forgot to tell you something. This big sister Yan is most proficient in the way of the sword. In the entire Taishu temple, her cultivation in the way of the sword is one of the best. Even that legendary genius Lin Daohan is inferior to her in the way of the sword. Killing intent flashed across Lin Feng's body. In the end, he still chose to avoid internal strife as much as possible. Long Ye's words just now contained too much information. If all of it was true, then the value of this piece of information could also make Lin Feng not attack. Take care, sect leader Lin. Take care, big sister Yan. We will meet again. Amidst the low and hoarse laughter, Long Ye's body floated backwards. Her entire person turned into a ball of blue light and gradually dissipated in the air, turning into blue dots of light and escaping. If Lin Feng gives up on attacking, Yan Mingyue naturally won't attack either. She and Long Yi know each other very well. One of them wholeheartedly wants to leave, the other can't stay on her own. Yan Mingyue turned her head to look at Lin Feng, saying with a slight smile, Long Yi flatters me. Mingyue's little bit of cultivation in the way of the sword is only superficial. Sect leader Lin is a great grandmaster of the way of the sword. If you have free time in the future, please don't be stingy in giving Mingyue some pointers. Hearing this, Lin Feng said lightly, Fairy Yan is too polite, this seat doesn't deserve it. At this time, at the center of the sea of white light, another resplendent and thick golden pillar of light rose from the ground, charging straight into the sky and then gradually turning into multicolored light. In the center of the pillar of light, a bright flame burned fiercely. The third one. Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue looked at each other. Lin Feng slowly said, This seat wishes to make a trip to the center of the sea of trees. Fairy Yan can do as you please. Yan Mingyue's pair of eyes shimmered with light, the corners of her mouth revealing a hint of a smile. Does sect leader Lin mind if Mingyue comes along? Lin Feng said indifferently, Up to you. He took a step forward, flying towards the center of the sea of white light where three pillars of light rose. Yan Mingyue followed by his side. As Lin Feng flew, his consciousness communicated with the jade capital mountain in his soul. After the sudden change in the cloudy forest realm, and the golden rock great sage refined and took control of the world's will, causing the situation to go out of control, Lin Feng temporarily cut off Jade Capital Mountain's connection with the outside world, so the people on Jade Capital Mountain did not know what happened after that. Zhu Yi and the others pacified the group of second-generation disciples, sending them back to cultivate on their own, but their few personal disciples still guarded the mountain. Lin Feng's soul made a projection on the mountain. Xiao Yan, Shi Tianhao, Zhu Yi, and Yu Hongyan hurriedly came up to greet. Master, your blessing has arrived. Lin Feng smiled at them when he saw them. Xiao Yan and the others could not help but be stunned, looking at each other, all scratching their heads in confusion. Lin Feng did not explain, clapping his palm lightly. The yin and yang life and death formation diagram, Kuan Peng Hall, Flame Dragon Heavenly Armor, and Wutong Tree Heart flew out respectively. The yin and yang life and death formation diagram turned into a small light spot, flying into the center of Zhu Yi's brows. Zhu Yi did not say much, standing on the spot without moving, silently deducing the formation diagram. He had a similar experience before, so it was much easier now, but the yin and yang life and death formation was too majestic. He still needed to spend all his attention. The size of the Kuan Peng Hall in the air kept shrinking, finally turning into the size of an ordinary human palace, landing on the ground in front of Shi Tianhao. Shi Tianhao went up the stairs, came to the door of the hall, and pushed it open. In the hall, Lin Feng's Iron Tree clone was looking at him with a smile. The Flame Dragon Heavenly Armor and the Wutong Tree Heart landed in front of Yu Hongyan and Xiao Yan respectively. Lin Feng said, One of you has a low cultivation, and the other is injured. These two treasures are mainly for you to protect yourselves, and they can also be used as tools to retrieve treasures. When the Flame Dragon Heaven Armor was put on Yu Hongyan's body, its shape changed rapidly. It turned into a slim, feminine soft armor, which made Yu Hongyan look even more valiant and valiant. Yu Hongyan had not formed her gold core yet, so her current cultivation was not enough to activate the Flame Dragon heavenly armor. She mainly relied on the war god clone that Lin Feng had placed in the armor to activate it. When Xiao Yan put away the Wutong tree heart, he immediately felt the blazing and vigorous life force within it. He also noticed that there was a faint flame power jumping within it. It even caused the 3 great true fires in his body to stir. He did not dare to use his transcendence energy to examine it again, so he looked up at Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Put it away and don't act rashly. When the time comes, this item will be of great help to you. The 2 of you follow Tianhao to the Kuanpeng Hall. When the time comes, the Kuanpeng Hall will send you to your destination. When it's time to retrieve the treasures, you can act separately." Lin Feng then looked at Shi Tianhao and Zhu Yi. "When the time is right, I will send you down Jade Capital Mountain. When the time comes, you will have to grasp the opportunity yourselves." After listening to Lin Feng's instructions, the disciples nodded in unison. "We will follow Master's orders." Shi Tianhao smiled and said, "Master, what good stuff is it this time?" Xiao Yan also said curiously, "Master, you said before that those who entered the Cloud Forest world this time are all essence soul cultivators. Even if we have treasures with us, how can we pull the teeth out of the tiger's mouth?" Lin Feng smiled. "You will know very soon." Chapter 456. Yu Hongyan looked at Xiao Yan and the other 2 and asked softly, "Master, 3rd senior brother and 5th junior brother are not on the mountain." Lin Feng smiled. "Don't worry, they will be there." He looked at Yu Hongyan, Xiao Yan, Shi Tianhao, and Zhu Yi and said with a smile, "However, whether you can obtain this opportunity depends on yourselves. When the time is right, Master will lend you a hand." The disciples nodded in agreement. The light projection projected by Lin Feng's spiritual sense flickered slightly, leaving Xiao Yan and the others and arriving in the stone room of Miao Shihao's cave abode. As soon as they met, Lin Feng asked, "Who is the person with the highest sword cultivation in Taishu Temple?" When Miao Shihao saw Lin Feng, a lazy and joyful smile appeared on his face. Upon hearing Lin Feng's question, Brother Shihao's body suddenly straightened, and his expression became much more serious. After thinking carefully, he slowly said, "It should be the Grand Elder of Taishu Temple, Yin Yuanjin." Miao Shihao thought about it and added, "If there are other hidden people, or if someone is hiding their cultivation, then I can't be sure." Lin Feng repeated, "Yin Yuanjin?" Miao Shihao nodded. Yan Mingyue's master, one of the powerhouses of Taishu Temple, a 3rd-tier primordial spirit transformation realm expert, and also the youngest Grand Elder of Taishu Temple. In the past, he competed with the Enchantress, but it is said that he lost by 1 move. Later, he returned to Taishu Temple and devoted himself to nurturing Yan Mingyue. Lin Feng pondered for a moment and suddenly asked, "Is she related to Mount Shu Sword Sect?" Miao Shihao shook his head. "I'm not sure about that. As far as I know, Yin Yuanjin and Yan Mingyue both cultivate the Void Yin Yang Dao of the Tai and Void Scriptures. The Mount Shu Sword Sect is completely based on sword techniques. The sword techniques of Yan Mingyue and her disciple are still based on the Void Yin Yang Dao. It is called the Great Void Double Pole Mystic Sword Technique, which is mysterious." Miao Shihao continued, "Other than that, the Taishu Temple also has a sword Dao that is built on the foundation of the Supreme Wangqing Dao. It is called the Sword of Wangqing Dao." A disgusted expression appeared on Miao Shihao's face. He curled his lips and said, "Even though I, Brother Shihao, really hate that bunch of coarse people from the Taishu Temple, I have to admit that their Taishu Dao is indeed the best Dao in the vast land of the Divine Continent. It is all-encompassing and profound. The Sword Dao is not the specialty of the Taishu Temple. However, both the Great Void Double Pole Mystic Sword Technique and the Sword of Wangqing Dao are superior to the 6 Meridian Swords of Mount Shu. I'm afraid that only the mountain treasure of Mount Shu, the heavenly immortal sword Qi, can surpass it." Lin Feng nodded. He had heard of the heavenly immortal sword Qi of Mount Shu. It was recognized as the strongest sword Dao in the Divine Land. It was the mountain treasure of Mount Shu, but it was extremely difficult to cultivate. Even the master of the 6 Meridian swords could not master it. The supreme elder of Mount Shu who had gone into seclusion was not known, so he could not consider it for now. Other than that, in the public's opinion, only the leader of the Mount Shu sword sect had mastered the heavenly immortal sword qi. Miao Shihao smiled strangely. The radicals in the Taishu temple have always been thinking about the heavenly immortal sword qi of Mount Shu. Lin Feng nodded, and his divine sense projection gradually dissipated. Miao Shihao lost his composure once again, reclining on the bed, the corners of his mouth revealing a light smile. Hee, since the sect head asked like this, then he must have some ideas. The Void Temple's course people are going to have a headache. Lin Feng's consciousness left Jade Capital Mountain. Turning his head slightly, he saw Yan Mingyue looking at him silently. Sect Master Lin seems to have a plan in mind? Yan Mingyue asked with a smile, gently tucking her hair behind her ear. Lin Feng said lightly, I have some ideas, but it depends on how the situation develops. It's still too early to say that it's a plan. As he spoke, from the center of the sea of trees, two resplendent pillars of light suddenly shot out at once. They turned into colors in the air, and flames lit up in the pillars of light. Yan Mingyue murmured, It's already 5 pillars of light. Lin Feng nodded silently, and continued to fly toward the center of the sea of trees. The closer he got, the stronger the suppression of the dimensional zone of the cloudy forest realm. It's fine here. Lin Feng stopped, silently looking at the 5 thick pillars of light in the center of the sea of trees. He could even vaguely see the phantom of a golden-winged rock beside the pillars of light, as if it was about to spread its wings and fly high. A voice suddenly echoed between heaven and earth. Since you're here, why stop? The tone of this voice was very calm, but it was like thunder, surging in all directions everywhere, resounding throughout the entire cloudy forest realm. Yan Mingyue looked down at her feet and said softly, If we take one more step forward, the Golden Rock Great Sage will be able to immediately lock onto our precise position. But now, he can only feel that we're nearing this boundary line. Lin Feng said indifferently, although he refined this side of the world and incarnated into the world's will, more of his energy is used to block the outside world from breaking through the cloudy forest realm. Under such pressure, his control and refinement is actually not perfect. Moreover, the dimensional realm is incomparably huge. He doesn't have the ability to completely fuse the entire world and make it his own body. Yan Mingyue looked at Lin Feng. Is the development of the current situation in line with sect leader Lin's expectations? Lin Feng was surprised. Why ask when you already know the answer, Fairy Yan? Although I can see that Long Yi, the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, and Lady Umbrella are definitely plotting something, I don't know the specifics of the situation. Yan Mingyue said calmly, King and Liang, Sword Venerable Guanchong, and Dao Venerable Xingdou have all lost contact with each other. They must have already fallen into the hands of the Golden Rock Great Sage. Lin Feng said calmly, If I'm not wrong, the crux of their plan is probably on that Lady Umbrella. Hearing this, Yan Mingyue nodded slowly. Lady Umbrella has always been mysterious. Very few people know what kind of magical powers she has. If there are any variables, I think it will indeed be on that person. Lin Feng looked at the 5 light pillars in the distance and smiled. I'm very interested in the Enchantress's plan. In the center of the sea of trees, the Golden Rock Great Sage stood motionless on the spot after finishing his sentence. Seeing that Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue did not reply, he did not pursue the matter, and turned to look at the other side. There, the Heavenly Will Golden Rock, the Sea Dragon Hawk, and another golden-winged great rock at the second tier of the immortal demon soul realm, as well as the Great Sage Cheongqi, for great demons stood side by side. In front of them, the white-clothed and barefooted Long Yi stood calmly. Slowly the Golden Rock Great Sage said, In my memory, you should be the last Longhuan Jade tree in the vast infinite wasteland. Long Yi smiled and said, Not the last one, but the other Longhuan Jade trees have not become demons. The Golden Rock Great Sage nodded. Through that wolf, I already know that I can't get the Book of Mixed Origin Demon Scripture from you. Since that's the case, there's no need to say anything more. He used his dermic powers to pick up Long Yi, and threw her directly into the disc below, taking up a grid. There, in addition to Zen Master Dade and Dao Master Xingdou, Shi Zongyue, Sword Venerable Guanchong, and the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage were also imprisoned by the light pillars. Compared to Zen Master Dade and Tao Master Xingdou, the three of them were much more relaxed under the imprisonment of the light pillars, but they could not escape. Shi Zhongyue and Sword Venerable Guanchong were experts at the second tier of the primordial soul realm. They cultivated the top techniques of the Five Emperors' True Dragon Scripture and the Guanchong Sword, so they were very powerful. The Heavenly Wolf Great Sage also cultivated the Book of Mixed Origin Demon Scripture and reached the second tier of the Immortal Demon Soul realm. Their strength was outstanding among those of the same realm. But they were all alone, and the Golden Rock Great Sage had 4 great demons at the second tier of the Immortal Demon Soul realm attacking him at the same time. The Great Sage Qiongqi had mastered the 9 Glory Sky-Shattering Formation. In other places, there was still the possibility of fighting to the death or perishing together. But in the Sea of White Light Trees, he was suppressed by the domain power, and could only be humiliated and captured. Shi Zhongyue was even more depressed, especially when he saw the mocking smile on the Great Sage Qiongqi's face. The Qiongqi demon clan had never been on good terms with the Great Qin dynasty. It was not the first time that Shi Zhongyue had fought with the Great Sage Qiongqi. Except for the time when he was caught off guard by the 9 Glory Sky-Shattering Formation on the North Wind Sea, he had never suffered such a big loss. Sword Venerable Guanchong sat in the light pillar with cold eyes and a layer of frost on his face. Golden Rock Tianluan looked at him and said indifferently, "If Sword Venerable Guanchong was here, with his magical power, he could probably break through the suppression of the domain power like the master of the celestial sect and fly away at will. But your Guanchong sword does not have such an effect." Sword Venerable Guanchong did not refute, nor did he bluff. He just stared coldly at Golden Rock Tianluan and the other great demons. Golden Rock Tianluan looked at him calmly and said, "Today it is your turn to suffer, but you should feel honored to be able to contribute to the great cause of our emperor." In a box next to Sword Venerable Guanchong, a tall man in a black velvet cloak sneered and said, "What a joke. Does Lei Yuan deserve to be called an emperor?" Golden Rock Tianluan looked at the tall man expressionlessly and said, "Kill prison, don't talk nonsense. Otherwise you will be the biggest joke." The tall man's eyes were bloodshot. It was the Great Sage of Celestial Wolf. He opened his mouth, revealing a row of white teeth, and said with a hideous smile, "Lei Yuan has reached the 3rd realm of the Immortal Demon Soul. It is indeed extraordinary, but he is far inferior to my senior sister. My senior sister has not become an emperor, so what qualifications does he have?" Silently, Golden Rock Tianluan said, "Time will prove everything. Just like you, you have always been arrogant and arrogant. Did you ever think that this day would come?" He, Great Sage of Celestial Wolf, sneered and said, "The 9 Glory Sky-Shattering Formation is really a good thing. So many powerful treasures are needed to set up the formation. Even if old Qiongqi sold all his possessions, he still couldn't afford it. I guess it must be the Golden-Winged Rock Tribe that provided a lot of help. Even I dare to fight Lei Yuan in front of me, let alone you guys." Great Sage of Celestial Wolf stared at Golden Rock Tianluan and said, "If it wasn't for the 9 Glory Sky-Shattering Formation, I could easily beat the 4 of you. Tianluan, how do you think you survived just now?" Golden Rock Tianluan looked at his right wing, where a large part of the golden feather was missing. It was the wound left by Great Sage of Celestial Wolf. With the suppression of the domain, the 4 demons couldn't suppress Great Sage of Celestial Wolf. In the end, they had to rely on the 9 Glory Sky-Shattering Formation to suppress him. "Kill prison, you are indeed very strong." Golden Rock Tianluan nodded and said, "But this can't change your final fate." During the conversation, Long Yi was also sent down the disc by Great Sage of Celestial Wolf Tribe. She occupied a grid, and was soon imprisoned by the golden light. The 6th light pillar soared into the sky. Shi Zhongyue, Tao Master Xingdou, and the others all looked serious. Long Yi and Great Sage of Celestial Wolf Tribe looked at each other, but the corners of their mouths revealed an imperceptible smile. Chapter 457. Golden Rock Great Sage looked at the 6 pillars of light in front of him, and the 6 balls of flames within them. Then he looked at Long Yi and Heavenly Wolf Great Sage in the disc below. Finally, his gaze fell on Lady Umbrella, who was imprisoned by the ancient tree branches. Lady Umbrella still looked like an old lady in ochre clothes. She looked worriedly at Long Yi and Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, who were trapped by the pillars of light. Golden Rock Great Sage looked up at the world shrouded by the sea of white trees. His gaze seemed to pass through the endless void. Outside the cloudy forest realm, a group of experts was watching this sealed medium-class world with hostility. Through the void, Golden Rock Great Sage could see a mass of Emperor's Chi. Its purple-gold radiance flickered continuously. It was heavy, vigorous, domineering, and majestic, as if it carried the weight of the country and looked down upon the world. On the other side, there was a similarly golden figure of light circling around. There was a faint sound of a dragon's roar. Within the golden figure of light, there were flowing lights of white, green, black, red, and yellow. They rotated continuously and interacted with each other. Compared to the magnificence of the previous two, the floating ancient sword in the dark void was much more inconspicuous. It was only 3 feet long and looked ordinary. There was only a faintly discernible sword aimed at the cloudy forest realm from afar. It was like a bow drawn but not fired. However, it made Golden Rock Great Sage feel as if there was a blade on his back. On the other side of the ancient sword, there was a white cloud that was faintly discernible in the void turbulence. Within the cloud, there was a pair of eyes silently watching the cloudy forest realm. The pair of eyes contained extremely rich emotions. They were filled with longing and love for all life in the world. They were filled with warmth, kindness, and joy. Dao was emotionless but emotionless. The owner of this pair of eyes had clearly deduced the concept of supreme oblivion to an extremely high realm. Golden Rock Great Sage knew that they were the projections of the experts of the Zhou dynasty, the Qin dynasty, the Mount Shu Sword sect, and the Taishu Temple. Their powers were tightly locked onto the cloudy forest realm, to prevent the cloudy forest realm from disappearing into the void turbulence. Although the Golden Rock Great Sage had isolated them from entering, Yan Mingyue and the others had already established a connection previously, pointing out the path for the powerhouses of their respective factions. The cloudy forest realm was not like Jade Capital Mountain, which could move freely. It was located in the void and moved along with the void turbulence. Its movements were rhythmic, so the Golden Rock Great Sage was unable to shake off the pursuit of these powerhouses, and had to face the impact of their power from time to time. At this rate, before long, the Cloud Forest Realm's domain power would be broken through. Apart from the human race's group of powerhouses, there was still one more person outside the Cloud Forest world, sticking closely to the realm domain's power, ready to enter at any time. It was an illusory figure that seemed to be shrouded in a layer of fog. Her appearance could not be seen clearly, but Golden Rock Great Sage knew that it was the Enchantress. The Golden Rock Great Sage and the Enchantress looked at each other from afar, separated by the power of boundaries. After a glance, the Golden Rock Great Sage withdrew his gaze. He looked at the disc in front of him, and let out a loud and resonant cry. A large number of profound runes condensed in the air. 3 people are missing, but it doesn't matter. As the Golden Rock Great Sage let out a long cry, 3 resplendent runes suddenly lit up on his forehead. Every rune was incomparably profound, and contained extremely powerful power. Starlight and afterglow surged on the runes, and every rune was like a star from the 9 heavens descending into the mortal world. The boundless power was like a celestial body, incomparably heavy. The entire cloudy forest realm was trembling. The power of the realm rubbed against these runes non-stop, and space shattered continuously. The gaze of Lady Umbrella, who was trapped in the white light, flickered slightly, and she muttered, "So that's how it is. If there aren't enough strong practitioners as sacrifices, Thunder Abyss Golden Rock will have to sacrifice the stars he has refined as a substitute." However, in this way he can also guarantee that the Yuduming flower that he cultivates will be completely under his control. With the Yuduming flower, even if he loses some power of the stars, the gains will be far greater than the effort. When the demon race cultivated and attained the first realm of the undying demon soul, their lifespan would be endless, and their demon soul would be powerful. If they succeeded in condensing the primordial true spirit, they could advance to the second realm of the undying demon soul. With the primordial true spirit as the foundation, They could refine the stars in the sky and guide the power of the stars into their bodies, making their power stronger and stronger. When a star was completely refined, the great sage of the demon race would try to guide the star in the sky and fuse it with his undying demon soul. If he succeeded, the stars and soul would fuse as one, and he would successfully advance to the third realm of the undying demon soul. Only when he succeeded in refining a star and fused it with his demon soul would he have the remaining power to refine more stars. Goldenrock Great Sage was no doubt a great demon of the third realm of the undying demon soul, but to sacrifice the Yudaming flower and directly throw out 3 stars, it was truly a huge move. It astonished everyone present. There was a difference in the quality of power between stars, so it didn't mean that the more stars one refined, the more invincible one was. It also depended on what star was refined. However, these 3 stars were clearly not Goldenrock Great Sage's limit. Heavenly Wolf Great Sage was silent. Long Yi took a look at him and thought to himself, even though he can't be mentioned in the same breath as Master, Senior Uncle isn't a match for Goldenrock. Goldenrock Great Sage released the stars he had refined, and they landed in the round plate below, immediately occupying the remaining 3 empty spaces. The round plate trembled, and 3 thick pillars of light rushed into the sky. Together with the 6 pillars of light from before, there were a total of 9 pillars of light flashing with colorful lights. It was a magnificent sight to see. They rose from the center of the sea of white light, and in each pillar of light, there was a ball of flames burning fiercely. Goldenrock Great Sage chanted ancient incantations continuously. Those weren't the syllables of the golden-winged Great Peng race, but a mysterious incantation of unknown origin. A desolate, ancient, and overbearing concept of power instantly filled the entire cloud forest world. That powerful aura spread out, and everyone in the surroundings instantly had the urge to bow down. Great Sage Cheongqi, Goldenrock Heavenly Wheel, and the rest of the great demons were slightly astonished, and their eyes revealed a fervent glow. They calmed down and steadied their minds, but they also felt that their hearts were in turmoil, and they couldn't be suppressed. And the other great sages of the demon race with the undying demon soul realm lowered their heads one after another, revealing a look of submission. Even the other 2 Qiankis under Great Sage Cheongqi, who had cultivated the undying demon soul, were no exception. Shi Zongyue and the others, who were fixed in place by the pillars of light, all had a look of pain on their faces. The pillars of light that enveloped them became more and more dazzling, and each pillar began to become thicker and thicker, until they were tightly pressed together, and then began to fuse with each other. In the end, the 9 pillars of light merged into one, turning into a thick pillar of light with a diameter of 100 miles, occupying the entire area of the round plate, and penetrating a side of the world. At the edge of the center of the sea of trees, Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue watched the scene in front of them silently. Yan Mingyue said, "There's no need to gather enough people. Goldenrock Great Sage also has a way to start the ceremony, but I'm sure he'll have to pay a huge price." Lin Feng's brows gradually furrowed. Why is he in such a hurry to start the ceremony instead of coming to find us? He controls the medium-class world. Although it's only a matter of time before the outside world breaks through, the power of the domain is still very stable at this moment, and he still has a lot of time. Yan Mingyue thought for a moment and said, "Perhaps the plan of Long Yi and the others has been launched, and some changes that we don't know have occurred, forcing Goldenrock Great Sage to start ahead of time." Lin Feng was silent, his eyes fixed on the huge pillar of light. He saw that there was a ball of flame in the pillar of light, and at this time, it began to gather towards the center, and then condensed into a large dazzling flame, burning fiercely. But this flame did not give people a feeling of warmth at all. Instead, it made people shudder with fear, and they felt cold all over. Their intuition told them that a great disaster was about to befall them. The color of the flame, at the beginning, was crimson, and now gradually changed to purple, full of ominous omens. Lin Feng watched the flame burning fiercely in the sky, and then slowly descended, falling in the direction of the source of the pillar of light. "It's almost time," Lin Feng calculated in his heart, and his body flashed, flying towards the center of the sea of trees. Yan Mingyue glanced at Lin Feng, but did not speak. Golden Rock Great Sage had started the sacred fire sacrificial rite ceremony. The ceremony could not be interrupted once it started, otherwise it would lead to failure on the verge of success. But the ceremony had not progressed to the most critical juncture. Just looking at how Golden Rock Great Sage could still maintain the power of spatial boundaries, it could be seen that he still had strength to spare while presiding over the ceremony. At the final juncture of the ceremony, Golden Rock Great Sage would definitely put all his energy into the ceremony. At that time, his control over the cloudy forest world would also sharply decline, and the outer realm powerhouses would charge in one after another. That would be the best time to make a move. Both Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue understood this logic, but not only did Lin Feng choose to set off towards the center of the Sea of Trees now, even Yan Mingyue also followed, traveling with Lin Feng. In the center of the Sea of Trees, in the disk in front of Golden Rock Great Sage, the blazing flame kept descending within the light waves, until it finally fell into the groove in the center of the disk. Around the flame, Long Yi, Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, Shizongyue, and the others sat around, each of them revealing a pained expression. Boom, 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 boom. Huge vibrations came from within the purple flame, the sound getting louder and louder. Violent power surged, causing the entire sea of trees of white light to boil. Countless rune markings danced in the flame, illuminating the void, branding every inch of space, causing the space to tremble non-stop. Countless runes also appeared all over Golden Rock Great Sage's body, densely forming a golden glow, resonating with the purple flame. With a sizzling sound, the purple flame seemed to burn through the void, gradually turning into a black hole. The flame became lesser and lesser, while the black hole became larger and larger. A dark purple light suddenly shot out from the black hole, shrouded in mist and suffused with divine light. There was only a tiny wisp of purple light, and it didn't look blazing, but that incomparably terrifying aura instantly swept across the world. The entire cloudy forest world was trembling. This time, not only the demon race powerhouses at the first level of the undying demon soul realm, even Great Sage Qiongqi and the other great demons at the second level of the undying demon soul realm felt trembling and fear, the depths of their souls shivering. That was a kind of innate suppression, making them unable to raise their heads. It was just a wisp of light, but everyone didn't dare to look straight at it, as if the supreme ruler of heaven and earth had descended upon the mortal world. Chapter 458. The area of the black hole in the center of the disk continued to shrink, and more light was being emitted from the black hole. In the beginning, it was only a tiny wisp, but later on, it turned into a vast expanse of purple light. Rays of divine light were being emitted, and the originally extremely terrifying power aura became even more shocking. In the 9 squares around the black hole, the complexions of Long Night, Shizongyue and the others became worse and worse. Shizongyue, Sword Venerable Guanchong, and the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage also appeared extremely weak at this moment. Long Yi directly transformed back into the original true form of the Jade Tree of Longhuan. Buddhist monk Dade was also completely unable to manifest the Buddhist golden body, and the most miserable Star Do Dao Venerable was already at his last gasp. Although it was extremely weak, not only Long Yi and the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage who were already aware of it, even Shizongyue and the other human experts had already recognized its origins when they saw the purple light emitted from the black hole in the center of the disk. Purple light surged out in large amounts, dazzling and resplendent, shaking the entire cloud forest world. Terrifying energy undulations even spread out to the outside world, intimidating the myriad worlds in the heavens. Sword Venerable Guanchong looked at the purple light, and his expression was unprecedentedly ugly. Yuda Minghua. His seniority in the Mount Shu sword sect was extremely high. Even in the entire divine land, he was a cultivator of the older generation. He had personally participated in the war that brought about the catastrophe of the races, and had even witnessed the final battle at the Great Thunderclap Monastery. With Sword Saint Guanchong's cultivation at that time, he could only stay far away from the center of the battlefield, and fight with other demon clan experts on the periphery, not daring to approach the center of the battlefield. It was a battle that only mighty experts at the Third Firmament Essence Soul Realm could participate in. For those below the Third Firmament Essence Soul Realm, It was a land of death. Whoever dared to take a step in would immediately perish. But even so, Sword Venerable Guanchong could sense the terrifying power of the Yuhuang celestial sea when it tore apart the 9 heavens and 10 earths. He had once seen the demon race's sacred emperor execute the great divine art of Yuta Dark Flower, and directly pierce through the power of the realm of the divine land. He had truly shattered half of the sky, and it was a performance that was like a miracle. Honorable Swordsman Guanchong could clearly see that after the terrifying purple light tore through the void, it rampaged through the void turbulence, shattering countless spaces. It seemed as if there was no end to it. He even saw a dimensional realm being torn apart by that purple light. It was that strike that, with an incomparably terrifying power that could destroy the heavens and the earth, killed the sect leader of Mount Shu Sword Sect, whom Honorable Swordsman Guanchong had always regarded as invincible. At that time, he was the strongest swordsman in the divine land. At the same time, it also shook Honorable Swordsman Guanchong's belief. Over 4,000 years had passed. Yuhuang had fallen, and the Yudu race had vanished without a trace. The first volume of the heavenly Tao demon scripture was lost, and there was no new saint emperor of the demon race appearing in heaven wasteland. There was also no more Yudu Minghua. After the battle at the Great Thunderclap Monastery, this powerful divine art became a masterpiece. In the memory of Sword Venerable Guanchong, it gradually faded. However, when he saw Yudu Minghua appear in front of him again, only then did Sword Venerable Guanchong realize that this smear of purple radiance had long become his nightmare. He had never truly forgotten about it. Shi Zongyue's gaze was also incomparably solemn. He stared at the demonic purple light in the black hole that was growing stronger and stronger. Yudu Minghua. It really is Yudu Minghua. This kind of power, there's no mistaking it. In the past, Shi Zongyue was only a Yuanian cultivator. He was far inferior to Sword Venerable Guanchong, and didn't have the right to participate in the battle at the Great Thunderclap Monastery. He could only watch the battle from afar under the protection of his elders, treating it as an opportunity to gain experience. However, the Yudu Minghua that was like a divine punishment from the heavens, a calamity of creation, slashing the heavens above and the netherworld below. The powerful might of killing strong practitioners was deeply engraved in everyone's heart. Even now, Shi Zongyue was no longer the Yuanian cultivator from the past. He had formed his primordial spirit, and cultivated to the second level of the primordial spirit realm. However, when he faced the domineering purple light again, he still felt astonished. Even though the purple light in front of him couldn't be compared to the power of the Yuhuang celestial sea that tore apart the creation of the Great Thousand in the past, and compared to the Yudu Minghua back then, this could only be considered a budding state. The appearance of this terrifying great divine art was enough to frighten everyone. Even the extremely weak monk Master Dade and Star Dipper Dao Venerable stared at the purple light with their eyes wide open. They weren't able to come into contact with the calamitous race war back then, but they had heard of the name Yudu Minghua and knew what kind of terrifying power it represented. Heavenly Wolf Great Sage stared at the Yudu Minghua that was in the midst of being born, and incomparably complicated emotions appeared in his blood-red eyes. Greed, envy, desire, fear, and longing were all intertwined together. His throat muttered, "Old woman umbrella, it's time to make your move. Otherwise, we will be sucked clean and really become a living sacrifice." Long Ye's gaze moved away from the Yudu Minghua and landed on Golden Rock Great Sage. She didn't say anything. Golden Rock Great Sage's body was covered in densely packed runes and curses, and they flashed with dazzling radiance. They resonated with the Yudu Minghua in the center of the disc. Even when Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue were getting closer and closer to him, he didn't care about them. Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue had already reached the edge of the center of the sea of trees, and they felt the terrifying waves of power from the purple divine light. They were both astonished. Yan Mingyue took a deep breath. It really is the Yudu Minghua. Thunder Abyss Golden Rock has succeeded. Lin Feng was silent. He suddenly lowered his head to look at the branches and leaves of the ancient tree under his feet. He stared at them without blinking. When he saw something, his pupils contracted abruptly. As expected, they have made their move. Yan Mingyue's gaze landed on the same place as Lin Feng's. As expected, The variable has landed on Lady Umbrella. On the branches of the ancient tree that were flashing with white light, there was a place that had already turned dark brown. That brown color had covered up the white light, and it was as though there was a bald spot on the branches. It was also as though a person had grown a patch of psoriasis on their skin. Looking closely, one would realize that there was actually a patch of ochre-brown mushrooms growing on the branches. These big mushrooms looked very ordinary. They didn't have a lot of spirit chi fluctuations, and they didn't have any ferocious changes. They were just ordinary brown mushrooms. However, these mushrooms directly wiped out the white light on the branches of the ancient tree. Lin Feng raised his eyes to look and saw that in the sea of trees, there were more and more ochre-brown patches. At first, they looked like small dots, but they soon became patches of brown spots. In the end, these brown spots connected together and actually drowned out the entire sea of trees. The white light dimmed, and the sea of trees became a brown ocean. All the branches of the ancient trees were covered with ochre-brown mushrooms. In the center of the sea of trees, an extremely huge mushroom rose from the ground. It extended out from the dense foliage of the cloud forest trees. The mushroom canopy covered the sky, as though it was a huge piece of land. The handle of the canopy was also extremely thick, even thicker than a single cloud forest tree. Lin Feng looked at this scene and came to a realization. So that's how it is. This is the true strength of Lady Umbrella. Lady Umbrella was a mushroom-type demon. Her umbrella-shaped appearance was actually formed by the aggregation of countless spores. In a short period of time in the cloud forest world, Lady Umbrella had already dispersed the spores that contained her own demon power. They spread through the air and quickly covered the entire cloud forest world. Now, with a thought, these countless spores immediately turned into ochre-brown mushrooms. They were like clones of Lady Umbrella. This could really be said to have thousands of clones. And with the help of these clones, Lady Umbrella was actually fighting with the Golden Rock Great Sage for the control of the Cloud Forest world. She was only at the first tier of the Undying Demon Soul realm, and she had not even condensed her primordial true spirit. She was actually fighting with the Golden Rock Great Sage, who was at the third tier of the Undying Demon Soul realm, for the control of the Cloud Forest world. Anyone who heard of this would find it unbelievable. But Lady Umbrella was indeed doing so. What was unbelievable was that it seemed to be very effective. This is this demon's final trump card, and also her strongest innate mystique, Yan Mingyue said softly. I'm afraid she is the only one in the entire heaven primordial world who can refine the will of a medium-sized world with just the first tier of the Undying Demon Soul realm. No wonder she, who has always been in seclusion, was sent here by the enchantress this time. The demon race was different from the human race. They had different innate talents. When they were successful in their cultivation, they would often develop many innate mystiques according to the characteristics of their race. For example, the Taotai races devour the heavens and devour the earth. Some innate mystiques did not have much battle power, but they had their own unique uses. According to the time and place of use, and under the right circumstances, they could display nature-defying uses that far exceeded the level of an individual's realm. Lady Umbrella was like this now. Although her battle power was not strong, she could fight with the Golden Rock Great Sage for the control of the medium-sized world's will. Lin Feng stared at the giant mushroom. Just by herself, she might be able to occupy a small kiliocosm for a short period of time. However, it would be difficult for her to control a medium-sized world. She has to thank the Golden Rock Great Sage for using a dozen of cloud forest trees to form a formation to provide her with abundant spiritual energy. In the end, she took the opportunity to offer herself to the Buddha. Apart from that, she also has the help of the enchantress. At the top of the giant mushroom, there was a ball of colorful radiance that emitted a mysterious and vast power. The waves of demonic power were exactly the same as when Long Yi had used the Book of Primordial Demon, but it was more profound and powerful. That was a bit of primordial true spirit that the enchantress had hidden in Lady Umbrella's demon soul. If he had hidden it in his doppelganger, it would have been discovered by the Golden Rock Great Sage. However, if it was just a bit of primordial true spirit, it would not be a problem. Her cultivation was originally above the Golden Rock Great Sage's. With a bit of primordial true spirit hidden in the depths of Lady Umbrella's demon soul, she could hide from the Golden Rock Great Sage's eyes and ears. Now that this bit of primordial true spirit was activated, it had successfully given Lady Umbrella the confidence to fight with the Golden Rock Great Sage for the control of the Cloudy Forest world. She did not need to completely seize control of the Cloudy Forest world. She just needed to create trouble for the Golden Rock Great Sage, and the Golden Rock Great Sage's control over the Cloudy Forest world would rapidly decline. As a result, the power of the sealed world's boundaries would immediately weaken. The enchantress, who had been waiting outside, immediately made use of this opportunity to break through. Under the Golden Rock Great Sage's subordinates, the Golden Rock of Heavenly Wheel, Sea Dragon Hawk and other great demons, including the Great Sage Cheongchi, were all furious. They pounced towards the giant mushroom that Lady Umbrella had transformed into. However, at this moment, the primordial true spirit of the enchantress hidden in the demon souls of the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, and Long Yi and the disc on the ground burst forth. They actually wanted to break free from the restraints of the disc's light pillar, and interrupt the process of the sacred fire sacrificial rite. In an instant, the backyard of the Golden Rock Great Sage was on fire. A moment ago, he was still in high spirits, about to let the ancient and world-shattering great divine art of Yuduming Hua see the light of day once again. Now he was immediately faced with internal and external troubles, swaying like a storm. The Golden Rock Great Sage raised his eyes to look at the void and saw the power of the boundaries gradually collapsing. The figure of the enchantress became clearer and clearer. Looking at this scene, a demonic golden light flashed in the pair of cold eyes of the huge golden rock. There was no trace of panic or anger, only colder and colder. Chapter 459. Long Yi and Heavenly Wolf Great Sage had both revealed their true forms. The former transformed into a towering tree. Its trunk was as white as jade, and its leaves were a demonic blue color that flickered with a ghostly glow. The latter transformed into a huge black wolf that was the size of a mountain. Its crimson eyes were like two blood ponds and abysses. In the depths of their demon souls, there was a ball of extraordinarily colorful radiance. That was the primordial true spirit planted by the enchantress, which helped them break free from the restraints of the disc. No matter if it was Long Yi or Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, they didn't hurry to escape after breaking free. They stayed where they were and relied on the enchantress's primordial true spirit to refine the Yuda dark flower that had just been born in the center of the disc. Shi Zongyue and the rest stared with their eyes wide open at the sudden change in front of them. The enchantress's appetite was truly extraordinary. Other than wanting to control Cloud Forest Realm, he also wanted to snatch away the Yuda dark flower that Golden Rock Great Sage had painstakingly refined. The primordial true spirits in the demon souls of Long Yi, Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, and Lady Umbrella burst forth at this moment. In the sky of Cloud Forest Realm, a figure gradually condensed and officially broke through the power of the boundary to barge in. That figure was blurry, as though it was a primitive and ignorant universe. It was the head of the 10 saints of the demon race, the Enchantress. The Enchantress broke through the power of the boundary to enter Cloud Forest Realm, but she wasn't in a hurry to make a move. Instead, with a jolt of her demon power, she stirred the edges of the void on the periphery of the dimensional world into chaos, sealing Cloud Forest Realm once again. After she took the initiative to break through the power of the boundary, she immediately repaired the power of the boundary to stop the strong practitioners of Taishu Temple and the rest of the human race from entering. Golden Rock Great Sage looked at her coldly and didn't say a word. The sacred fire sacrifice was still ongoing, and the Yuda dark flower was becoming more and more dazzling. Silently, the enchantress's voice rang out, and just like Long Yi, it was both hoarse and low. Thunder Abyss, such a big move, let me lend you a hand. She landed on the huge brown mushroom that Lady Umbrella had transformed into, and the mushroom suddenly trembled. The dozen cloud forest trees that Golden Rock Great Sage had formed into turned into a huge tree with white light, filling the entire world. At this moment, the world had transformed into a brown mushroom sea, and the mushrooms grew all over the branches of the cloud forest trees. Under the control of the heavenly enchantress Great Sage, Lady Umbrella's demonic powers surged, and she forcefully pulled the 3 cloud forest trees out of the world. The cloudwood world fiercely warped, the giant tree trunks below that pierced into the void shrunk. The 3 cloudwood trees separated from the other ancient trees that gathered together, rapidly shrinking in size, returning to the appearance when Lin Feng and the others first entered the cloudwood world. This scene was seen by Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue, and their gazes flickered. Lin Feng saw the enchantress grabbing, and boundless demonic power instantly transformed into a terrifying huge hand to grab the 3 cloud forest trees that were like heavenly pillars. Lin Feng had seen this hand once before, and it was this terrifying hand that had severely injured Golden Crow Great Sage, causing that great demon to die in the Divine Land. Back then Lin Feng had been astonished, and seeing it again today, it was still as powerful as before. The 3 cloud forest trees were all covered with mushrooms at that moment. Heavenly Charm Great Sage made a grabbing motion, and the mushrooms on 2 of the cloud forest trees vanished. She threw them directly at the round disc that was currently nurturing the Yuduming flowers. The 2 cloud forest trees transformed into resplendent light, and were injected into the bodies of Long Yi and Heavenly Wolf Great Sage. The 2 demons instantly seemed to have eaten a huge tonic, and their power surged. The souls and life force that had been sacrificed by the sacred fire sacrifice were all recovered, and there was still some left. The remaining power was further provided to the sacred fire sacrifice. When Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue saw this, they couldn't help being speechless. Golden Rock Great Sage sacrificing the stars that he had refined to carry out the ritual was no doubt to strengthen his control over Yuduming Hua. It was also to save these cloud forest trees, so that he could bring them back to Heaven Wasteland. The enchantress didn't care at all, and she just swept up the cloud forest trees and burned them as firewood. The mushroom on the remaining cloud forest tree didn't fall, but it transformed into flowing light and was absorbed by Lady Umbrella. Her demonic aura became thicker and stronger. Shi Zongyue, Sword Venerable Guanchong, and the rest had gloomy expressions. The appearance of the enchantress was good news to Long Yi and Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, but it was useless to them. No matter if it was Golden Rock Great Sage or the enchantress, they all treated these strong practitioners of the human race as sacrifices to refine the Yuta Dark Flower. Once the enchantress appeared, Golden Rock, Great Sage Cheongqi, and the rest of the great demons didn't dare to pounce on Lady Umbrella anymore. All of them retreated. Golden Rock Great Sage looked at the enchantress with a pair of cold black and gold eyes. His gaze then landed on Lady Umbrella, who was at her feet. Slowly he said, "Lady Umbrella, so this is where you are truly powerful. I've always been thinking how you would help the Heavenly Enchantress enter, but I didn't expect you to have such an innate divine art." Lady Umbrella's calm voice rang out. "I still have to thank Golden Rock Great Sage for showing mercy. I'm truly ashamed." Golden Rock Great Sage shook his head. "It's a pity that you aren't willing to serve me." The enchantress also didn't look at Golden Rock Great Sage. Her gaze landed on Great Sage Cheongqi, and she smiled. "Evil Pool, is the 9 Glory Sky Crumbling Formation diagram with you or with Thunder Abyss?" Great Sage Cheongqi grinned. "It's with me." The enchantress nodded. "And if I ask you to hand it over, you definitely won't hand it over. In that case, I can only take it myself." After she said that, she raised her hand, and the terrifying hand that seemed to be able to crush stars appeared again. It pierced through space and grabbed towards Great Sage Cheongqi. Great Sage Cheongqi roared strangely. "Good move." He opened his mouth, and a black light spot flew out. It rapidly enlarged in the sky and transformed into an incomparably huge formation. In the formation, countless runes and runes overlapped and intersected with each other. Profound principles and concepts emerged from within. A terrifying concept that wanted to collapse heaven and earth and destroy the 1,000 worlds spread out in all directions, shaking the entire cloud forest realm. It didn't let Yuduming Hua take the lead. A huge hole tore open in the sky, revealing the pitch-black universe. There were countless stars twinkling in the universe, and the most eye-catching ones were the 9 stars. They were clearly far away from the boundless space of Cloud Forest Realm, but at that moment, they seemed to be right in front of their eyes. Among the 9 stars, 7 were incomparably dazzling while the remaining 2 were faintly discernible. They looked dim and were like 2 shadows, but they similarly gave off terrifying energy waves. Sun Moon Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, 7 elements. In addition to the 2 concealed stars, Rahu and Jidu, they were the 9 luminaries of the stars in the sky. The second tier of the undying demon soul, the primordial true spirit realm. The great sage of the demon race would sacrifice the stars and guide the power of the stars into his body. According to the different stars he chose, the power would also have a huge difference. However, very few people would choose to sacrifice the 9 luminaries. That was because the power of the 9 luminaries was too immense and endless. The great sage of the demon race that sacrificed the 9 luminaries would have outstanding battle prowess in the primordial true spirit realm, but he couldn't fuse the 9 luminaries with his demon soul. It was practically cutting off the hope of advancing to the 3rd tier of the undying demon soul, the realm of stars and souls as one. And now, great sage Cheongchi was using the 9 luminaries' heaven-shattering formation to guide the majestic power of the 9 luminaries in the sky. The materials he used to set up the formation this time were much stronger than what he had used in Beifeng Hai, so the power of the formation had also risen accordingly. Even if he had to face the enchantress, he would still dare to fight. Within the formation, 9 balls of light slowly floated up and down, each corresponding to the 9 luminaries' star in the sky. Great sage Cheongchi activated the power of the 9 luminaries' heaven-shattering formation, and one of the 9 luminaries in the sky, the gold luminary's star, suddenly lit up. The center of the formation shot out a brilliant and majestic platinum-colored pillar of light. It was like a divine sword that could split the heavens and split the earth, and it stabbed towards the enchantress's palm. Lin Feng was watching from afar, but he could also feel a sharp aura rushing towards him, as if it wanted to cut him into pieces. Looking closely, he could see that in the platinum-colored pillar of light, there were countless layers of complicated formations stacked together. Every formation gathered countless sharp metal essence chi, and they were like indestructible sword lights. This platinum-colored pillar of light was extremely condensed. Everywhere it passed, the void in front of it shattered, revealing a pitch-black area, and ghosts and gods had to avoid it. The first strike of the 9 luminaries' heaven-shattering formation draws upon the power of the gold luminary's star of the 9 luminaries. It's best at killing. It's no wonder it was able to shatter the array formation that the great Qin dynasty had set up in the North Wind Sea with a single strike. Lin Feng took a deep breath. The current 9 luminaries' heaven-shattering formation has already surpassed the strength of a peak 2nd-tier essence soul realm expert. It can fight against a 3rd-tier essence soul realm expert. Although that was what he said, the enchantress was truly ferocious. His terrifying giant hand grabbed the platinum-colored pillar of light like a person grabbing a sharp blade with his bare hands. The violent force directly crushed the space. When the platinum-colored pillar of light was grabbed by the enchantress, it immediately distorted and dimmed. It was like a peerless divine sword had been forcefully twisted into a twisted piece of scrap metal. However, the enchantress was not in a good state either. The giant hand formed from demonic power was lacerated by the power of the gold luminary's star in the platinum-colored pillar of light. It was nearly shattered. Back when she had fought Golden Crow Great Sage, he had been sent flying by her palm. Her own palm had been injured by Golden Crow Great Sage's Sun True Fire, and it was as if it had been scalded by a flame. But now it was riddled with wounds. If it had been a real corporeal body, it would have been a bloody mess. Great Sage Cheongchi could be proud of himself for achieving such a result, but he couldn't feel happy at all. His expression was extremely grim, because the enchantress was going up against the 9 luminaries' heaven-shattering formation, and the majestic power of the gold luminary's star in the sky. Lin Feng, who was watching from the side, frowned slightly when he saw this. Then, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Golden Rock is indeed not easy to deal with. Ever since the appearance of the heavenly charm Great Sage, Golden Rock Great Sage had remained calm, and continued to refine the Yudu Minghua as per usual. It was as if he didn't mind that the heavenly charm Great Sage had suddenly interfered, and that half a day of his hard work might have gone to the enemy. Ever since the enchantress had appeared, she didn't pay attention to Golden Rock Great Sage. It was as if she was certain that the other party would obediently continue refining the Yudu Minghua. When she grabbed the platinum-colored pillar of light, she suddenly stopped. It wasn't because she was afraid of the 9 luminaries' heaven-shattering formation. Instead, she suddenly turned her head to look at Golden Rock Great Sage. Golden Rock Great Sage's gaze was also looking at her. His gaze was cold, and with a flap of his wings, the cloud forest world shook violently. Chapter 460. Golden Rock Great Sage flapped his wings, and the remaining dozen ancient trees that formed the cloud forest started to twist violently. The ancient trees were filled with the mushrooms formed by Lady Umbrella's demon power. These mushrooms wanted to suppress the movement of the cloud forest trees together. However, even though Golden Rock Great Sage's absolute control over the will of the world was disrupted by her, he still had a lot of control. No matter if it was Golden Rock Great Sage or Lady Umbrella with the help of the Enchantress, no one would be able to take the lead in this tug-of-war. However, if one of them completely undermined the other, there was no stopping it. Furthermore, the formation of the cloud forest trees was laid down by Golden Rock Great Sage. Now that he wanted to destroy the formation, Lady Umbrella couldn't stop him. The Enchantress suddenly turned to look at Golden Rock Great Sage, but he didn't stop him. Instead, he placed his attention on the disc that was refining the Yudu Minghua. Has the sacrificial refinement succeeded? Lin Feng and Yan Mingyue also looked at the disc that was shrouded by the radiance. In the black hole in the center of the disc, purple divine light flickered faintly. The terrifying aura gradually calmed down, and was no longer as shocking. This wasn't Golden Rock Great Sage's sacrificial refinement failing. On the contrary, he had succeeded. That purple divine light was precisely the overbearing divine art that Yu Huang Celestial Sea had used to dominate heaven's aeon, Yudu Minghua. After the sacrificial refinement was complete, the divine item would conceal itself and retract its aura. Only when it was used would it burst forth with the terrifying might that could look down on the world. Yan Mingyue stared at the Yudu Minghua for a moment before slowly saying, "So I see. Long Yi and Heavenly Wolf Great Sage's rebellion was all part of Golden Rock Great Sage's plan. Activating the sacrificial ceremony in advance without gathering 9 people was also part of the plan." He gave up the 3 stars that he had refined to ensure his control over the Yudu Minghua. From the start, he wanted to borrow the power of the Enchantress to refine the Yudu Minghua together. Looks like Golden Rock Great Sage wasn't completely confident in refining the Yudu Minghua alone. From the start, he planned to borrow the demon power of the Enchantress. Lin Feng nodded and said, "The Enchantress's Primordial Chaos Demon Cannon is the spell that has the closest relationship with Yudu Minghua among all the spells in Heaven Wasteland. This extremely horrifying demonic light, it's like it was successfully refined by the combined efforts of 2 great demons." Yan Mingyue's gaze moved between the Enchantress and the Golden Rock Great Sage. Therefore, when the Golden Rock Great Sage saw that the Enchantress broke through the sealing power of the bounded domain and barged in, he did not panic at all. This was originally part of his plan. He purposely left Lady Umbrella behind to give the Enchantress a key to enter the cloudy forest world. The Enchantress should have also realized this point, but she chose to beat him at his own game. She placed Yudu Minghua as the most important, and refined this exceptional divine art first before anything else. After coming in, she didn't disturb the Golden Rock Great Sage's refinement, and instead went to find trouble with Qiongqi. Lin Feng gently narrowed his eyes. Now that the refinement is successful, Golden Rock Great Sage has taken control of the Yudu Minghua, but the Enchantress has also obtained a portion of the control. The 2 of them are now going to fight it out. The refinement of the Yudu Minghua was successful, and other than Long Yi and Heavenly Wolf Great Sage who had the cloud forest tree to replenish their energy, Shizongyue and the rest of the human cultivators had greenish-gray faces. Their essence, qi, and spirit were ruined, and they were like candles in the wind that could be extinguished at any time. Their primordial spirits were all severely damaged, and they were almost at the end of their lives. They were on the verge of extinction. The purple light gradually sank into the black hole in the center of the disc, and when the Enchantress saw this sight, she stretched her hand out and pulled at the void beside her. Instantly, she tore open a crack in space. In the crack, numerous extremely terrifying waves of demon power came out, and they were all strong demon practitioners under the Enchantress. The ones with the lowest cultivation had already formed an undying demon soul, and there was no lack of demon sages of the primordial true spirit realm among them. Golden Rock Great Sage didn't summon the other generals from his hometown in vast continent of Heaven Wasteland. If they were to really compare family assets, he was still slightly inferior to the Enchantress. Therefore, he continued to vibrate his demon power to destroy the formation that was laid down by the Cloud Forest Tree. The thick tree trunks of the Cloud Forest Tree continued to extend downwards, as though they were going deep into the boundless void. When these dozens of thick tree trunks reached the bottom, the space warped, and they were like dozens of thick pillars of light. They gathered together as though they came from the same root system. And now, because of the actions of the Golden Rock Great Sage, these tree trunks began to disintegrate, and one by one, they were no longer coiled together, and pulled themselves out of the void. The size of the Cloud Forest Tree also began to shrink rapidly, and it was about to return to its original size. Looking down, the void was warped, and the red wasteland that Lin Feng and the rest first entered the medium-class world reappeared in front of them. The seal of the Cloud Forest world was completely lifted. Lady Umbrella wanted to use her own mystique to completely refine the medium-class world, and thus help the Enchantress continue to seal the Cloud Forest world, but it was already too late. The Golden Rock Great Sage wasn't willing to play with the Enchantress alone, so he directly flipped the original table. To the human experts of the Taishu Temple, the Great Zhou Dynasty, and the rest who were waiting outside, as long as there was a slight gap in the boundary power of the Cloud Forest world, they could immediately break in. After all, Lady Umbrella wasn't an expert at the third tier of the undying demon soul, the realm of astral soul as one. Before she could completely refine the medium-class world, the people outside had already rushed in, and the situation was completely chaotic. And right at this moment, Lin Feng suddenly moved. His target was those dozens of huge cloud forest trees, and he directly swooped down. There, Lady Umbrella was currently trying to refine the huge trees, making the cloud forest trees form a formation again. However, Lin Feng wouldn't give her that chance. His entire body surged with cold and clear light, and a shrill and violent sword cry rang out. Everywhere the clear light passed by, the mushrooms that covered the tree trunks were shattered into fine powder, and they had no choice but to retreat, not daring to stop Lin Feng. Go! With Lin Feng's shout, Shi Tianhao, Zhu Yi Xiaoyan, and Yu Hongyan had already driven Kun Peng Hall out, and they flew towards the cloud forest trees together. In the void above everyone's head, a few terrifying auras came over, and the strong practitioners of the human race who were waiting outside all rushed into the cloud forest world at this moment. Yudu Minghua, 9 lights heaven-shattering formation, and cloud forest trees. To these top-notch practitioners, only these 3 things could pique their interest and cause them to fight over them. The Enchantress and Golden Rock Great Sage were already fighting for the control of Yudu Minghua, and Lin Feng grasped this chance in that instant. Taking advantage of the time when the other big shots were breaking through the world, he immediately made his move, taking the initiative to gain the upper hand. The door of Kunpeng Hall opened, and Zhu Yi, Xiaoyan, and Yu Hongyan all rushed out. They landed on the closest 3 cloud forest trees. Xiaoyan held the Wutong tree heart in his hand, and stuck it on the trunk of the cloud forest tree. Compared to the huge cloud forest tree, the Wutong tree heart was as small as a speck of dust. But at this moment, the Wutong tree heart suddenly burst forth with powerful energy, and boundless blazing spirit energy poured into the trunk of the cloud forest tree. Looking from afar, the place where both sides came into contact instantly became fiery red. Scarlet light spread in all directions continuously, and soon, it covered the entire cloud forest tree. Even the leaves were dyed scarlet. Yu Hongyan, who was wrapped by flame dragon heavenly armor, stretched out her hands like 2 dragon claws to grab onto the tree trunk and shake it forcefully. It looked like a comical scene of an ant trying to shake a tree, but the magic power of flame dragon heavenly armor burst forth, and the huge cloud forest tree actually trembled for a moment. This was still because Yu Hongyan's cultivation was too low. If she was in her yuaniying period, she would have directly uprooted the cloud forest tree, while wearing flame dragon heavenly armor. Shi Tianhao and Zhu Yi, on the other hand, were much more relaxed. One of them activated Kunpeng Palace, and the other activated yin and yang life and death formation. They directly swept up one cloud forest tree each. The greenish-black palace and the huge formation were like two huge beasts that instantly swallowed the cloud forest tree. On the other side, Xiao Yan and Yu Hongyan had already shaken the foundation of the cloud forest tree in front of them. Shi Tianhao and Zhu Yi rushed over and helped them uproot the cloud forest tree and put it away as well. Time was tight, and Lin Feng did not stand on ceremony. After he pushed the sword back into the sword case, he pointed at his glabella. An endless purple gas appeared. Up, up, up. Lin Feng waved his hand, and the huge amount of cyclic purple gas immediately condensed into an extremely huge palm. Like grabbing a wooden stick, it directly uprooted the 3 cloud forest trees. There were a total of 18 cloud forest trees. Previously, the enchantress uprooted 3 of them and gave them to Long Yi, the Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, and Lady Umbrella respectively. In the end, there were only 15 left. Now Lin Feng and the other disciples worked together and uprooted 7 of them at once, instantly taking almost half. But in such a short time, the sky cracked, and the many experts guarding outside had already rushed in. The moment they arrived, they saw the actions of Lin Feng and the others clearly. Put it down. A few loud shouts sounded at the same time, and the vigorous power shook the entire dimensional realm. The red clouds burned, and in the boundless golden light, a vague shadow appeared, but its appearance could not be seen clearly. One could only feel the heavy, vigorous, domineering, and dignified aura, as if it carried the weight of the country, and looked down on the world. That boundless golden light smashed towards the heads of Lin Feng and his disciple. But what was even faster than the golden light was a wisp of sword qi. The sword qi was minute and almost imperceptible. It was like a gentle breeze, but it was such a simple sword qi that was no inferior to the powerful strike that the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation had drawn upon the boundless power of the gold glory Venus in the sky. That sword qi seemed to be born from chaos before heaven and earth had been created. It wanted to split the chaos apart with one sword, splitting heaven and earth apart, and building a world. Meanwhile, the enchantress and Golden Rock Great Sage, who were fighting for Yude Minghua, couldn't tolerate Lin Feng uprooting so many cloud forest trees at once. The 2 of them fought endlessly, but they each sent out a wisp of demon power to attack Lin Feng. The enchantress immediately raised a dark and gloomy ball of light, and used his own demon power to condense a small world. He then destroyed the small world, and struck out a ray of light. It was none other than Heaven Chaos Primordial Nirvana Demon Light. Golden Rock Great Sage's speed was even faster. In terms of speed, even the enchantress couldn't be compared to him. A golden tail feather fell from his body and transformed into golden light that vanished into the air. In an instant he was already in front of Lin Feng. Shooting through space, extreme speed through space, and incorporating the concept of the power of time. Even if the opponent was a primordial spirit realm cultivator, distorting space wouldn't be able to stop him. Breaking through the void to escape also wouldn't be able to avoid this attack that surpassed the concept of speed. In an instant, thousands of powerful attacks came at him, but Lin Feng's expression was still calm. Everything was within his expectations. First, he used Kunpeng Hall to store all 4 of his disciples, then used the last bit of time to pull out another cloud forest tree. At the same time, Jade Capital Mountain in his spirit soul trembled violently. At that moment, Golden Rock Great Sage's attack was the first to arrive, and it was already right in front of him. Chapter 461. Mount Shu Sword Sect, Great Zhou Dynasty, the Enchantress, Golden Rock Sage. The powerhouses of the 4 forces attacked at the same time, wanting to kill Lin Feng and stop him from taking the Cloud Forest Tree. The Cloud Forest Tree was a variant of the ginseng fruit tree, the most mysterious and rare of the 4 great spiritual plants in the world. Although the Cloud Forest immortal fruit it produced was not as miraculous as the ginseng fruit, it was still a first-class immortal fruit, greatly beneficial to cultivators. Even one fruit was invaluable. Moreover, each of the cloud forest trees in this cloud forest realm had a lifespan of 10,000 years, and had accumulated a vast amount of spiritual qi. The essence of the entire dimensional realm was here. Long Yi, Heavenly Wolf Sage, and Lady Umbrella had each absorbed the spiritual chi essence of a cloud forest tree with the help of the enchantress, but they had not actually digested it. It was just temporarily stored in their bodies and needed to be slowly digested in the future. These 3 demon race great sages were all talented and powerful, but it was not easy to digest such a huge amount of power. Long Yi and Heavenly Wolf Sage were almost sacrificed, but with the spiritual chi of the cloud forest tree, they immediately became lively. And now there were a total of 15 cloud forest trees left. Lin Feng led the disciples and uprooted 7 of them at once. Facing a group of berserk powerhouses, Lin Feng still had the mind to uproot 1 more. 8 of the 15 were uprooted, and more than half of the cloud forest trees fell into Xianmen Tianzong's hands. Lin Feng suddenly became the target of public criticism. Destructive attacks came at him from all directions. For a moment, Lin Feng seemed to have become a small boat in the raging waves, as if one wave could sink him. Golden Rock Sage's attack arrived first. The fast golden light pierced through space and arrived in front of him. Even if Lin Feng steered Jing Mountain into the void, he would not have enough time. Lin Feng's expression was calm, but Jing Mountain in his spirit shook violently. Clouds of purple gas wrapped Lin Feng, and within the purple gas, the heavenly gate opened above Lin Feng's head. Jing Mountain slowly appeared in the clear light. The white jade-like mountain suddenly changed color, becoming transparent and pure like colored glass. Inside the colorless mountain, countless images flashed. The images kept changing, bizarre and colorful. Boundless space, boundless worlds, and boundless life forms were all displayed here. There were many similar life forms, but they were experiencing completely different fates. The blue sea turns into mulberry fields in the blink of an eye. 1,000 years have passed in the blink of an eye. The mysterious will of power circulated around Lin Feng. Faced with Golden Rock Great Sage's attack, the Enchantress and the other experts' fierce attacks, Lin Feng's body suddenly retreated, broke through space, and entered the dark void. The Golden Rock Sage's feathers, the Heavenly Enchantress Sage's heavenly primordial nirvanic light of chaos, the terrifying sword chi that could split the heavens and earth, and the glowing golden silhouette with a majestic aura, all followed closely behind. The divine senses of these experts followed their magical powers into the void, but they soon discovered that something was wrong. The scene in front of them changed and countless stars flashed. They seemed to be right in front of them, but in fact they were far away. In an instant, they disappeared without a trace, as if time was passing quickly. Countless light and shadow images flashed in front of them, and every image was of Lin Feng. It was a dazzling sight. People like the Heavenly Enchantress Great Sage, and the others could tell at a glance that these weren't illusions, phantoms, or clones. Each image was the real Lin Feng. But only for a moment was it real. Time, the change of a moment. Golden Rock Sage's cold eyes flashed. He knew that the thousands of images in front of him actually represented the many possibilities of the change of time in a moment. Every one of them was real, but only for a moment. In the next moment, what was originally real might become fake. This was not a natural phenomenon, but a change that Lin Feng had displayed through the mysterious power of Mount Yujing. When he escaped into the void, he not only broke open the space passageway, but also used the mystery of time to create countless passageways. Time was the longest eternity and the shortest moment. Only by comprehending these 2 extreme changes could one be considered to have comprehended the mystery of time. However, how many people could truly comprehend eternity and instant? In the past, when Lin Feng activated Mount Yujing, he mainly used the spatial power of the mysterious Heaven Treasure Tree, and Mount Yujing itself actually contained the mysterious power of time. As Lin Feng's current cultivation level became higher and higher, his connection with Yujing Mountain, the cyclic violet chi and the mystic Heaven Treasure Tree became closer and closer. He also finally had a deeper understanding of the mysteries of time in Yujing Mountain itself, and was able to activate the powerful and profound power within. When this magical power was displayed, it changed 60 times in the blink of an eye, and the possibilities were endless. Experts like the Enchantress and the others also had a deep or shallow understanding of the mystery of the power of time. If it was just a simple instantaneous change, it still wouldn't be able to stop them, and they would chase him to death. But this time, Lin Feng also activated the spatial power of the mysterious Heaven Treasure Tree. The combination of space and time, Lin Feng's own spirit, and the creation of the cyclic purple qi combined. The four fused together, and it was as if a brand new world with thousands of possibilities had evolved. The myriad changes of this brand new world were all displayed in an instant, causing the attacks of the enchantress and the others to miss. The experts all felt a chill in their hearts. Each of them had the ability to penetrate the heavens and the earth, and under their joint attack, Lin Feng was actually able to dodge it. This magical power made them all a little more cautious. This is the master of the Mystic Gate? Extraordinary indeed. When Lin Feng reappeared in the void again, he was already far away from the battlefield in the center of Cloud Forest Realm. After missing their attack, the enchantress and the rest couldn't be bothered to continue chasing after Lin Feng. Yudu Minghua, 9 lights heaven-shattering formation, and the remaining few Cloud Forest trees were still there, and they couldn't afford to be distracted. Lin Feng looked at the center of the battlefield on the side of the Cloud Forest trees. There, indescribable violent powers had started to clash, and they fought until the heavens fell and the earth cracked. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. He let out a soft sigh. That was close. The exhaustion just now was much greater than controlling Jade Capital Mountain to crash. It was even greater than the total exhaustion of 10 consecutive crashes. It was equivalent to bursting out all of my power in an instant, and I almost couldn't hold on. Jade Capital Mountain, the cyclic purple qi, and the mysterious Heaven Treasure Tree could all hold on, but the exhaustion of Lin Feng's own spirit was too great. Time, the transformation of all things, space, and soul were 4 in 1. If one side was exhausted too much, it would cause the balance of the whole to collapse. Lin Feng looked at the battlefield from afar and smiled. All right, let's start to look for the second chance to cut in. How could the others not know that Lin Feng was waiting for a chance? However, the situation was complicated, and every chance was fleeting. They couldn't afford to hesitate. The strong practitioners revealed their true appearances in the sky, and the clouds in the sky rolled back and forth. The vital qi that filled the sky condensed into form, and layers of the void transformed into a robe that condensed into the appearance of a middle-aged man. There was a white cloud embroidered on the bottom of the robe. This middle-aged man looked ordinary, and only a pair of eyes was eye-catching. They contained incomparably rich emotions, as though they contained all the emotions of the world and all the living beings in them. When the enchantress saw this middle-aged man, he smiled. Xianlin, it's been a long time. Xianlin Taoist, a member of Taishu Temple's Grand Elders Guild. He had been famous for 10,000 years, and he was a strong practitioner on the 3rd level of Primordial Spirit Realm. He had personally participated in the war between the two worlds back then. After he appeared, he didn't say a word. He just rushed towards Yudu Minghua that the Enchantress and Golden Rock Great Sage were fighting over. The Enchantress smiled. As he fought for control of Yudu Minghua with Golden Rock Great Sage, he flipped his palm, and a lump of air that was blurry and looked like a primeval universe that had yet to be born appeared in his palm. Xianlin Taoist immediately stopped, and that pair of eyes that contained thousands of emotions flashed. Little origin embryo concealing secret curse? The lump of air on the Enchantress's palm didn't dissipate, and it flew towards Xianlin Taoist. It looked light and powerless, but in reality, it was as heavy as the entire world. Everything around the lump of air was being sucked in continuously. Under the nourishment of the spirit qi of all things, the primeval universe in the lump of air was rapidly transforming. However, its true target was Xianlin Taoist. If he was swallowed in, the development of this primeval universe would immediately reverse, and it would return to the primeval state before vanishing into nothingness. Even Xianlin Taoist, who was on the 3rd level of Primordial Spirit Realm, didn't dare to take the risk and be swallowed by the lump of air. His left eye suddenly burst forth with fierce brilliance, and a transparent precious jade that had a surface of a prism flew out. Countless rays of brilliance refracted and instantly covered Xianlin Taoist in thousands of layers of space. These layers of space fell together like mirrors, and in every mirror, there was the existence of Xianlin Taoist. Illusions and reality coexisted, and there were endless changes. The eyes of Lin Feng, who was watching the battle from afar, lit up slightly. The magic treasure that Xianlin Taoist had taken out didn't simply execute space divine arts. It also fused the true meaning of the instant and fleeting moment of time into it. It was similar to the effect that Lin Feng had produced when he had activated Jade Capital Mountain. Xianlin Taoist used the 1,000-prism flowing light mirror to seal the enchantress's little chaotic embryo concealment mantra. He had already landed in front of the round disc that contained the Yudu Minghua. Golden Rock Great Sage glanced at him coldly and slightly flapped his wings. Golden light flashed again, transcending the limits of space to shoot out with extreme speed. A round light spot appeared on Xianlin Taoist's forehead, and it was like a small round mirror. This round mirror shone brightly like the sun shining on all things. Taishu Temple's spell, Great Void Heaven Reflecting Treasure Mirror Technique. The mirror light was like a gaze, and it contained a myriad of emotions: sorrow, pity, love, joy, anger, and hatred. They all looked at everything in front of them, and it was as if the happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy of tens of thousands of life forms in the entire world had gathered together and pressed down. In this will, there was a grand will that had no sorrow, no joy, no anger, and no resentment. It was tranquil and peaceful. Yet it controlled everything and ruled over everything. Emotions and emotionlessness merged into one, and it was hard to distinguish them. It was as if the heavenly Tao was above, with boundless love yet emotionless and desireless. It calmly looked at all living things. Being shown by the mirror light, Golden Rock Great Sage's extreme speed that transcended space also became sluggish. It was as if he was being watched by a heavenly eye, intimidated and restricted. He didn't dare to act recklessly. Back then, outside Sand Continent City, Peng Jia had also used this spell to deal with Lin Feng. However, when the same spell was used by Peng Jia, it was completely different from when it was used by Xianlin Taoist. Lin Feng exclaimed in admiration when he saw it. Suddenly, his heart stirred, and he saw a beam of sword chi flying towards him from afar. It was the terrifying sword chi that had the power to split heaven and earth. The other party had actually abandoned Yudu Minghua, 9 Glory Heaven Collapsing Formation, and other treasures to chase after him. Chapter 462. Yudu Minghua, 9 Glory Heaven Shattering Formation, and the Cloud Forest Tree were all abandoned to chase after Lin Feng wholeheartedly. After sensing the movement of the terrifying sword chi, Lin Feng burst out laughing. He really is a sword cultivator. The concept of power contained in the sword chi was extremely pure and unadorned. It wanted to pierce through all obstacles in front of it. It wasn't Xiaoshang sword artifacts' ferocity and overbearing, not Guanchong sword artifacts' simplicity and solemnity, not Xiaoyang sword artifacts' gentleness, not Xiaozi sword artifacts' agility, not Great Yin sword artifacts' flexibility, and not Li fierce sword artifacts' ruthlessness and sharpness. However, as long as this sword chi changed slightly, it could transform into any path of the 6 Meridians sword artifact. It was like the combination of the 6 Meridians sword artifact, and also their source. It contained the grand concept of power that could pierce through heaven and earth, and could evolve into tens of thousands of sword Tao. It was the extreme sublimation of tens of thousands of swords into one, and it was also the starting point and source of the sword Tao in the world. It was the starting point, and also the final destination. Just now at the Cloud Forest Tree, the moment this streak of sword energy appeared, Lin Feng already knew its origins. The treasure of Mount Shu Sword Sect, the Supreme Sword Tao, Celestial Heaven Sword Chi. Silently stood a middle-aged man in green in the sky of Cloud Forest World. His face was white and clean, but his facial features were ordinary. There was no sword will flowing out from his body at all, completely unlike the astonishing aura of great sword cultivators like Sword Venerable Guanchong. It was an ordinary sword that could be bought in any ordinary weapon shop in the secular world. The most ordinary fine iron sword was casually held in his hand. No matter how one looked at it, he looked like an ordinary person. There was only one exception. It was the ordinary long sword that seemed to be held casually in his hand. On the tip of the sword, there was an extremely fine brilliance that was almost undetectable by the human eye. Just this little bit. However, This faint brilliance on the tip of the sword far surpassed the world-shaking sword chi that swept 10,000 miles. This was a power that could tear apart heaven and earth condensed to the extreme. A bit of brilliance that could destroy everything. Lin Feng looked at this speck of light, his gaze slightly serious. He is certain that as long as this green-clothed middle-aged man is willing, he can completely hide even this speck of light and retract all of his mana and sword intent. However, just this speck of brilliance that was faintly revealed a strand of boundless grand Tao and a casual aura. It showed that this person's control of energy had already attained perfection. The current sect master of the Mount Shu Sword sect was a third firmament essence soul realm sword cultivator, Xian Longsheng. He looked at Lin Feng calmly. As he pointed his sword will, an extremely terrifying immortal heavenly sword chi streaked across the sky, shattering the void as it chased after Lin Feng. Lin Feng could clearly sense that the ferocious sword in the huge sword box was roaring and restless inside the profound heaven-time light paradise. But he forcefully suppressed the restlessness of the ominous sword, and did not unsheath it. Because Lin Feng vaguely sensed that Xian Longsheng had come for this sword. In Xian Longsheng's eyes, this ominous sword was even more precious than Yudu Minghua, 9 Glory Heaven-shattering formation, and the Cloud Forest tree. After realizing this, Lin Feng's mind spun rapidly, and he thought of a possibility in a flash. He didn't draw his sword. Even though he had released the mechanism of the sword box, he still suppressed the ominous sword. Instead, the sword box was like a fierce beast that had opened its mouth and swallowed Xian Longsheng's incomparably terrifying immortal heavenly sword chi. Sharp and ear-piercing sword hums came from the sword box. Even the hums were like invisible sword chi slicing the void in the surroundings. Lin Feng could clearly sense that the ominous sword in the sword box seemed to be experiencing endless pain. Yet it was also incomparably excited and high-spirited. It was as though it was going through the harshest training, transforming and obtaining even greater power. If immortal heavenly sword chi was the source and end of all sword path intents, then this ominous sword was without a doubt an exception. The sword will was the annihilation and massacre that surpassed immortal heavenly sword chi. It could destroy an era and slay creation. The immortal heavenly sword chi had contributed greatly to its maturation. This sword chi had sharpened the ominous sword more than it had suppressed the Golden Crow Great Sage for so long. The sword will of the ominous sword also pointed out another path for the immortal heavenly sword chi, that was already infinitely close to perfection to continue advancing. Lin Feng suddenly raised his eyes to look at Xian Longsheng. At the same time, Xian Longsheng's gaze was no longer calm. It became as sharp as a sword as he stared straight at Lin Feng. The void between the two of them became blurry. At that moment, a violent collision of power traveled over. Amidst the boundless purple-gold radiance, a palace hall and pavilion suddenly rushed out of the void, rushing towards the Enchantress, Golden Rock Great Sage, and Xianlin Taoist who were fighting. That was the power of the Great Zhou Empire. After its attack on Lin Feng had missed, it had hidden like Lin Feng. Now that it had found the right time to attack again, its target was Yudu Minghua. In a ball of majestic and overbearing purple-gold radiance, countless runes flew and spread out in all directions. It was as though it was the sun in the sky, filled with the majesty of a king. Under the shroud of the purple-gold radiance, there were palaces and pavilions that were like a city. Great halls, side halls, courtyards, tables, and tall buildings formed a palace that looked like the residence of an immortal king in heaven. Amidst the radiance, one could faintly see layers of light and shadows flashing. Billions of people bowed to the palace, and their will of obedience gathered together to bless the palace. Above the people, there were numerous sages and great scholars who also bowed to the palace. Countless essence chi gathered, representing the laws of heaven and earth and boundless laws. Between the palaces, numerous fairy maidservants transformed from light and shadow walked continuously, holding bejeweled nectar as though they were welcoming a prosperous era. The most eye-catching thing was that in the sky above the palaces, there were also numerous figures formed from light and shadow. They soared into the clouds and rode the mist, calling the wind and summoning the rain. It was as though 10,000 immortals had come to pay their respects. Everything formed an incomparably shocking scene. It was as though a true emperor of the celestial world had descended to the mortal world from the 9 heavens. On the central axis of the imperial city of the Celestial Dynasty, the most majestic and imposing Great Hall was located at the hub of the entire Celestial City. In the Great Hall, a man dressed in a dragon robe sat silently on the dragon throne. It was Emperor Zhou Liangpan. At that moment, under the protection of the Celestial City, Liangpan's aura was completely different. He was like the ruler of heaven and earth, a supreme human emperor. The Grand Imperial Palace was a super Dharma treasure refined from countless treasures after the Great Zhou Dynasty unearthed a primordial relic. This was the true reliance of the Great Zhou Dynasty in the Great Thousand Worlds and the Divine Land. It was the foundation of the Great Zhou Dynasty's rise to power. In the battle of vanquishing Buddhism in the past, it forcibly killed the last abbot of the Great Thunderclap Monastery, a Buddhist mighty figure at the primordial soul golden body realm. An epic legendary giant of the immortal Tao had been killed. SSSS. The essence chi of all directions went berserk, and the entire space turned into turbulence. The Grand Imperial Palace charged out, directly crushing the void and rushing into the battle of the Enchantress and the other two. Xianlin Taoist's right eye suddenly lit up. He actually took out another Dharma treasure, but it was a seemingly ordinary stone staircase. When Lin Feng saw this staircase, his pupils constricted slightly. He felt that the stone flute in his hand that he had obtained from Long Yi, and that the Taishu Temple had been searching for suddenly reacted, and was itching to move. Kong Nanhua had once stepped on a stone staircase that was related to that stone flute, and she was severely injured in the end. That stone staircase should be in existence without an owner, but there was no doubt that it was similar to the Dharma treasure that Xianlin Taoist had taken out. Maybe it was a different path that led to that mysterious place. Once the stone staircase appeared, it was as though it was the path to heaven. Xianlin Taoist took a step up, and he brought along a huge force that could overturn heaven and earth. He was about to bring away the round plate that contained the Yudu Ming Hua. The Enchantress had always been fighting with her demon power, and only at this moment did she finally reveal her true abilities. In the boundless primordial chaos, a palm that was as white as jade stretched out. Even though it was in the shape of a human, the demon power in it was incomparably violent. Different from the treasures that the primordial spirit almighty practitioners of the human race refined, to the great sages of the demon race, the strongest treasure was their true form. The Enchantress stretched out her hand to grab the round plate, and it was instantly fixed in the void. No matter how strong Xianlin Taoist's divine arts were or how mysterious the stone staircase was, it was hard for him to bring the round plate away. The Enchantress pulled back her hand, and the stone staircase trembled as though it was about to collapse. Xianlin Taoist stumbled and almost fell down. On the other side, the feathers on Golden Rock Great Sage's body trembled, and a large amount of golden light shot through the air. He had already fought several rounds with Emperor Zhou's Liangpan's Grand Imperial Palace. In the sky above Grand Imperial Palace, purple gold light flashed and transformed into a green chaotic hole. From this green chaotic hole, balls of green air flew out one after another. In the balls of air, violent lightning roared and tore through the void to strike Golden Rock Great Sage. A cold glint flashed in Golden Rock Great Sage's black gold eyes. Chaotic hole immortal slaying thunder. Legend had it that when the human emperor ruled the divine prefecture, even the primordial spirit almighty practitioners had to rush over to pay their respects. Anyone who disobeyed would be killed by the green lightning. Golden Rock Great Sage had a light rope formed by runes and curses hanging on his body. The other end of the light rope was connected to the Netherworld flower disc. He didn't give up on Yuda Netherworld flower, so his movement was restricted. He couldn't use his extreme speed to dodge. Thus he simply didn't dodge. The huge golden-winged rock spread his wings and soared into the sky. With a shrill cry, his two claws stretched out and transformed into two huge claws that covered the heaven and earth to crush all the chaotic whole immortal slaying thunder. In the main hall of Grand Imperial Palace, Liangpan and Zhu Hongwu couldn't help nodding when they saw this sight. This demon is truly fierce to be able to fight against the heavenly Enchantress. However, now isn't the time to decide victory or defeat with him. The urgent matter now is Yuda Netherworld flower. Grand Imperial Palace didn't stop at all. 10,000 yards of purple gold light suddenly gathered into a divine light that seemed to pierce through heaven and earth. Its power wasn't inferior to Yudu Netherworld Flower, and it was extremely terrifying. It smashed straight at the Netherworld Flower disc. In the disc, the purple light of Yudu Netherworld Flower suddenly lit up, and an aura that could destroy heaven and earth spread out. Even if the opponent was at his peak state and he was still just budding, he still didn't hesitate to clash with the purple gold divine light. The impact from the collision of the two divine lights directly shattered the entire disc. Lin Feng, who was far away, suddenly felt the heavenly scalpel golden bead he was carrying trembling. Chapter 463. The trembling of the heavenly scarlet golden bead surprised Lin Feng. Could the rumors about this treasure being related to the Yuhuang Celestial Sea be true? He recalled the aura of a supreme being that had flashed in the heavenly scarlet golden bead, when facing the pressure of the ancient Koan Peng. When the two reflected, Lin Feng couldn't help muttering in his heart. If that's the case, the old golden crow didn't die in vain. When he thought of that, he executed the power of the mysterious sky treasure tree and broke through the void, temporarily shaking off Xian Longsheng. He came to the main battlefield in the center of the cloud forest tree. The long sword in Xian Longsheng's hand trembled, and that spot of light instantly blossomed. Sword chi that was much more terrifying than before traversed time and space to chase after Lin Feng, not letting up at all. Feeling the heavenly immortal sword chi chasing after him, which crossed boundless space in an instant, its speed not slower than Jade Capital Mountains, Lin Feng frowned slightly. His gaze was still fixed on the shattered Netherworld Flower disc. The two beams of divine light collided and directly shattered the disc. The purple gold divine light released by the Supreme Imperial Palace turned into countless golden rays of light that raged between heaven and earth. It was as if countless golden dragons were tumbling, stirring up the world's chi of origin into pieces. Among the golden rays that filled the sky, a smear of purple light rose and fell. It was Yudu Netherworld Flower. In the next instant, a palm that was as white as jade, a huge claw that was like black iron, and another beam of purple gold divine light grabbed onto Yudu Netherworld Flower. The palm belonged to the enchantress, the claw belonged to Golden Rock Great Sage, and the second beam of purple gold divine light belonged to the Grand Imperial Palace. The three of them grabbed onto the destructive divine light at the same time and pulled it back. Xianlin Taoist stepped on the stone stairs and had a chance to activate the thousand-edge flowing light mirror, but the enchantress stretched out her second hand at that moment. The thousand prismatic streamlight mirror transformed into thousands of layers of space-time planes to defend. At the same time, the enchantress's palm also changed. A blurry light flickered on her palm. She reached out and directly froze the thousands of space-time planes. Although it was only for a moment, the thousand prismatic light mirror's divine ability was instantly broken by the enchantress. With a light wave of her 5 fingers, Xianlin Taoist was forced back. If it wasn't for Xianlin Taoist's quick reaction, the thousand prismatic light mirror would have been snatched away by the enchantress. This scene fell into Lin Feng's eyes, and his gaze immediately narrowed. The transformation of Mount Yujing combined with the mysterious heaven treasure tree is even stronger than the thousand-edge flowing light mirror. I wonder if it will be frozen by the sky charm? Everything happened in an instant. Being blocked by the enchantress, Xianlin Taoist was a step slower and couldn't make it in time. Yudu Minghua was captured by the enchantress, Golden Rock Great Sage, and Grand Imperial Palace. The shattered disc turned into fragments that flew in all directions. Because Long Night and Heavenly Wolf Great Sage had absorbed the essence of the cloud forest tree, they could barely protect themselves. However, the others had been sacrificed, and their primordial spirits were on the verge of collapsing. At that moment, they were about to die because of the calamity. Lin Feng's gaze flashed, and his magic power swept up Monk Dade, Shizongyue, and Star Dipper Dao Venerable. As for Sword Venerable Guanchong, he could only pray for his own good fortune. On the other side, the three forces were pulling together, but they had to be careful not to anger Yudu Minghua. The Enchantress and Golden Rock Great Sage were the ones who had refined Yudu Minghua, so they had an even greater advantage. They were about to shake off the purple gold divine light of Grand Imperial Palace. Grand Imperial Palace wasn't to be outdone. In the radiance of the palace, millions and millions of subjects sang together, and boundless power was imbued into the palace. Their power was further strengthened, and they didn't give an inch. The sky was shaken by the power of the 3 strong practitioners, and the power of the entire cloud forest realm actually started to collapse. Terrifying cracks appeared in heaven and earth, and it was as though numerous wounds were being torn open on the world itself. The battle of a bunch of strong practitioners, and under the collision of their powers, it looked like this medium-sized world was about to be destroyed. And even higher up in the sky, 9 lights heaven collapsing formation, and a golden dragon that was flashing with colorless radiance were also fighting until the heavens fell and the earth cracked. The terrifying strike of 9 lights heaven collapsing formation was whipped by the golden dragon's tail, and it suddenly changed direction, heading for Yudu Minghua instead. Lin Feng made a prompt decision and raised the heavenly scarlet golden bead to mobilize the power of Jade Capital Mountain, Profound Sky Treasure Tree, and Heavenly Cycle Purple Chi. The 4 of them combined into one to execute instant change again, and he dodged the immortal heavenly sword Chi that had already caught up to him. He also rushed towards Yudu Minghua. Xian Longxing was prepared this time, and the immortal heavenly sword Chi trembled in the space. It actually grasped Lin Feng's movement in that short instant, and it continued to slash through the void. However, Lin Feng was long prepared. After the first change, he changed again. This time, Lin Feng executed the power of instant change to the extreme, and it almost exceeded his ability. He almost got lost in the long river of time. Xian Longxing saved Sword Venerable Guanchong, who was on the verge of death. At the same time, he chased after Lin Feng again, but this time the immortal heavenly sword Qi lost track of Lin Feng. It chose the wrong plane of time and space, and it directly landed on Yudu Minghua. At the same time, the magic power of 9 lights heaven collapsing formation, and the golden dragon also landed. The enchantress, Golden Rock Great Sage, and the Grand Imperial Palace were locked in a stalemate. The power of the 6 strong practitioners worked on Yudu Minghua together, and in the dazzling radiance, unparalleled power burst forth. Yudu Minghua was split into 3. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. He saw that the split Yudu Minghua didn't shatter. After strangely absorbing the power of the 6 strong practitioners, it actually split on its own and split into 3 beams of purple divine light. After the enchantress, Golden Rock Great Sage, and the Great Zhou Empire each obtained a beam of Yudu Minghua, they all quickly retreated, wanting to suppress the Yudu Minghua in their hands. Lin Feng's heavenly scalpel golden bead trembled slightly before returning to Lin Feng's hand. At first glance, there didn't seem to be any obvious changes, but upon closer inspection, one would discover that there were faint purple flowing lights flashing through the golden mist inside the treasured bead. I'll go back and slowly ponder it. Lin Feng raised his head, and saw that the battle between the 5-colored golden dragon and the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation had reached its climax. At this moment, the void opened up again, and a white cloud appeared from within. The sect master of Mount Shu Sword Sect, Xian Longxing, instantly pulled back his sword and gave up on Lin Feng. He looked at that cloud. That cloud floated around like a gentle breeze, and cut in between the 5-colored golden dragon and the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation. In an instant, it swept up the entire formation. The huge formation that had a radius of several hundred miles was wrapped up by the cloud in an instant. The pitch-black universe revealed itself in the sky, and the 9 light stars in the galaxy had all dimmed. The cloud had actually cut off the connection between the formation and the 9 lights of the heavens. The source of power of the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation was the almost endless power of the stars of the 9 lights of the heavens. Now that the source of power was cut off, the entire formation instantly withered. In the formation, Great Sage Qiongqi's expression was incomparably grim. Yan Nanlai, the current temple master of Taishu Temple, Yan Nanlai. Ever since the war between the 2 worlds, the then temple master of Taishu Temple had retired to the Supreme Elders Council due to his injuries. Yan Nanlai had then taken over the position of temple master. It had been more than 4,000 years since then. This white cloud was formed by Yan Nanlai's magic power. Great Sage Cheongchi didn't dare to be negligent, and immediately activated the power of the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation to the extreme. Within the formation, 9 light figures moved up and down. They activated a powerful force at the same time, instantly tearing apart the clouds and re-establishing a connection with the 9 light stars of the heavens. Great Sage Cheongchi laughed sinisterly. 9 lights converge. At this moment, the 9 lights of the heavens lit up at the same time, and the majestic power of the stars endlessly surged into the formation through the void. The huge force immediately shook the already unstable cloudy forest world even more, and it was already on the verge of collapse. Boom, 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 boom. At this moment, a series of earth-shattering loud noises sounded, instantly suppressing the ferocious aura of the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation. This top ancient ominous formation of the demon race was trembling at this moment, as if it had met its natural enemy. Every time the loud noises sounded, it was as if the heavens and earth were being split apart, and a primeval universe was being broken open, turning into a primordial creation. Everyone's expression turned grave. It's the supreme formation breaking drum. The bane of all formations in the world, the magic treasure of Taishu Temple, the supreme formation breaking drum, sounded and suppressed the heavens. Although this magic treasure was targeted at the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation, Lin Feng only felt that his yin and yang life and death formation was also slightly shaking. The Supreme Emperor Palace that was hidden in the void far away was flashing with golden light, and the countless formations set up in the palace became unstable, as if they were going to be shattered together. The white clouds rolled over again, trying to stabilize the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation. Suddenly, a golden light flashed, and Golden Rock Great Sage fell into the formation. Cheongchi Great Sage immediately retreated to the side, handing over the control of the formation to Golden Rock Great Sage. Golden Rock Great Sage let out a long cry, and thousands of golden lights appeared all over his body, all entering the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation, forcibly stabilizing the formation. Yin Nanlai, today is not the time yet. This 9 lights heaven collapsing formation lacks a treasure to stabilize the core of the formation, and the quality of the 9 treasures used to set up the formation is also not uniform. Silently, Golden Rock Great Sage said, "In the future, I will personally bring the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation in its most perfect state to destroy your supreme formation breaking drum and Taishu Temple." He activated his demonic power, and the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation suddenly became pitch black, without light, but it was filled with an extremely terrifying aura. It swallowed the sky and the sun, like a huge black hole that was going to swallow the entire cloudy forest world. Under Golden Rock Great Sage's control, it was the 9th strike of the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation that drew the power of the dark star Rahu, instantly swallowing more than half of the white clouds of Taishu Temple's master Yin Nanlai. When the sound of the supreme formation breaking drum rang out again, the formation of the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation quickly reversed and turned into a small black dot. Golden Rock Great Sage opened his mouth and swallowed it. At the same time, he swept Great Sage Cheongchi up as well. He was about to transform into a stream of light and escape at an extremely fast speed. At this moment, when he unleashed his speed, no one could catch up to him. But how could the others let him go so easily? Yin Nanlai, the 5-colored golden dragon, and Dao Venerable Xuanlin's attacks came down at the same time. Even Heavenly Enchantress Great Sage and Grand Imperial Palace, who had been hiding to suppress Yudu Ming Hua, made their moves again. A group of strong practitioners of the 3rd level of Primordial Spirit Realm attacked at the same time, and their overflowing power was like a calamity of the end of the world. All of the vital chi dispersed, and the power of the realm that maintained the cloudy forest world collapsed completely. Huge, distorted cracks of chaos covered the world like a spider web. A medium-sized world was destroyed just like that. Facing such a powerful attack, Golden Rock Great Sage's cold black golden eyes gave off an incomparably cold glow. He suddenly opened his mouth and spat out the 9 lights heaven collapsing formation again. The 9 shadows floating in the formation trembled together. The entire formation shattered with a loud bang, and 9 rays of dazzling light shot out in all directions like 9 stars going berserk. Chapter 464. The destructive power of heaven and earth was incomparably terrifying. Unlike what Lin Feng, the enchantress Long Yi, and the others simulated with their own powers, the cloudy forest realm before them was a real medium-class world heading towards destruction. It was not comparable to the destruction of a boundless world, but it was still incomparably terrifying. Even a third-tier primordial spirit realm powerhouse would not dare to take the risk easily. Golden Rock Great Sage was in such a perilous situation, and he still had to face the siege of so many powerhouses. His gaze was as cold as ever, and he made a prompt decision, directly reversing the power of the Nine Lights Sky Collapsing Formation. The reverse distortion caused the Nine Lights Sky Collapsing Formation to automatically disintegrate. The power that erupted not only helped him resist the destructive power of the cloudy forest realm, but also shook Yan Nanlai and the others away. The 9 treasures used to set up the Nine Lights Sky Collapsing Formation scattered in all directions like 9 stars going berserk. Only the formation diagram turned into a black dot, and Golden Rock Great Sage was about to retrieve it. But at this moment, facing the great destructive power of heaven and earth, the drum beats of the supreme formation breaking drum reverberated in the void, forcefully opening up a path. A white cloud rapidly caught up to Golden Rock Great Sage. The cloud suddenly seemed to be boiling, rolling nonstop and spreading to both sides. 2 streams of power, one black and one white, flew out from within. Yin and Yang rotated, sucking in the formation diagram of the Nine Lights Sky Collapsing Formation. The medium-class world was destroyed, and everyone was trapped in the dark turbulence. They swayed unsteadily, and in the next moment, they were about to die along with heaven and earth. In an extremely short period of time, the group of powerhouses had consecutively fought several rounds. The enchantress's jade white palm also touched the formation diagram of the Nine Lights Sky Collapsing Formation. The Grand Imperial Palace, the 5-colored Golden Dragon, and the Xianlin Taoist were not willing to fall behind. Golden Rock Great Sage did not panic when the formation diagram was sucked in by the power of the Taishu Temple Sect Master Yan Nanlai. His gaze was still as cold as ever. Under the effect of his demonic power, the black formation diagram suddenly expanded, turning into 2 black halos inside and outside. The 2 halos separated from each other, and the central halo was swallowed by Golden Rock Great Sage. Then he immediately flew away at top speed. After being uprooted by Lin Feng, the few remaining cloud forest trees were currently facing the end of the world, also swaying in the wind and rain, looking like they were about to be destroyed. The Golden Rock Great Sage's figure flashed, and in the nick of time, he grabbed the 2 cloud forest trees, and then directly broke through space and entered the void turbulence, disappearing in the blink of an eye. He had completely left the cloud forest world, and returned to the infinite wilderness vast land. The inner circle was taken away by the Golden Rock Great Sage, while the outer circle was held by Yan Nanlai's mana. But before he could retract his mana, the enchantress Great Sage's palm grabbed it. The Grand Imperial Palace flew up, wanting to get a piece of the pie. The Heavenly Charm Great Sage and Yan Nanlai each released a strand of transcendence energy, which turned into raging waves in the void, blowing the Grand Imperial Palace like a boat in a storm. Although it would not capsize, it would still shake. The Grand Imperial Palace wanted to break through the violent waves in the void. Xianlin Dao Master stepped on the stone stairs and fell down, smashing on the purple golden flowing light above the Grand Imperial Palace. He blocked the Grand Imperial Palace for a while, and suddenly the palace completely stopped in the void. Yan Nanlai, the enchantress, and Xianlin Taoist made their moves at the same time to deal with Emperor Grand Palace, and this gave the 5-colored golden dragon a chance to pounce forward. It stretched out its dragon claws, and the 5 elements metal, wood, water, fire, and earth rotated to grab the halo formed by the 9 stars crumbling formation diagram. The 3 of them used their strength together, and the halo split into 3 just like Yudu Minghua. However, this was different from Yudu Minghua disintegrating by itself. It was truly torn into 3 parts by the power of the 3 strong practitioners. After shocking Xianlin Taoist back, Emperor Liang Pan, who was in Emperor Grand Palace, saw that there was no hope for the 9 stars crumbling formation diagram, so he set his sights on the 9 formation treasures that had been scattered. However, Lin Feng was already 1 step ahead. While everyone was fighting for the formation diagram, he went to intercept those treasures. Lin Feng quickly collected them and grabbed 4 treasures. When he was about to grab the 5th treasure, which was a crystal flashing with purple light, Emperor Grand Palace came over in a domineering manner. Lin Feng saw this and sneered. He smacked his head and purple qi filled the air. As the clear light rose furiously, Jade Capital Mountain descended into the void. This time, it wasn't Lin Feng that had absorbed the purple qi of the treasure tree into his own divine art. Instead, he had completely released the power of Jade Capital Mountain. White Jade Immortal Mountain quickly recovered to a height of 10,000 yards. The branches and leaves of the treasure tree on the peak trembled, and purple qi slowly enveloped the Immortal Mountain. A layer of multicolored and glistening halo formed a perfect sphere. It contained Jade Capital Mountain, the profound sky treasure tree, and the purple sea of clouds. It was like a complete world of creation. Tens of thousands of wills and wills fused together. The power was so great that it caused everyone to raise their eyebrows. Emperor Grand Palace was domineering, but Jade Capital Mountain was even more domineering. Standing on the spot without moving, it welcomed the oncoming Emperor Grand Palace. The purple gold radiance and the circular light barrier collided, and a violent impact that wasn't inferior to the destruction of the cloud forest world erupted. Boom, 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 boom. The dark void also shattered, turning into a chaotic state. The earth, water, fire, and wind all went berserk. These powers gathered together with the power of the destruction of the cloud forest world, and a chain reaction occurred, causing even more complete destruction. As a result, in the void turbulence, with Jade Capital Mountain and Emperor Grand Palace at the center, everything within 1,000 miles was empty. Nothing existed, destroyed completely. Even time seemed to have stopped. It seemed like in the next instant, but also like countless years had passed. Black and white things appeared, like the primordial aura from before the primordial world's creation. At this moment, the others saw that the Emperor Grand Palace was sent flying thousands of miles away by the force of the collision. At this moment, it looked like a small dot of light. What was even more terrifying was that Jade Capital Mountain stood proudly in its original position, not moving at all. Although the void shattered and space no longer existed, Yin Nanlai, the Enchantress, and the others could clearly feel that in the collision just now, Jade Capital Mountain didn't move at all. It was as if a giant was indifferently watching his opponent pounce on him. After a collision, his opponent was sent flying like a kite, while the giant himself was completely unaffected. He didn't even move his feet in the slightest. This was the result of the Emperor Grand Palace only bombarding Jade Capital Mountain with magic power. If there was a real collision like when Jade Capital Mountain collided with Divine Wind Mountain, it would probably be smashed to pieces by Jade Capital Mountain. It was like a speeding carriage that had been pushed to the limit, crashing straight into a mountain. The mountain didn't move, but the carriage was smashed into pieces. In the distance, the Emperor Grand Palace that was originally shrouded in light and worshipped by billions of people had mostly dissipated now. It needed to reform. In the palace, Emperor Zhou Liangpan and Zhu Hongwu looked at Jade Capital Mountain in the void with grim expressions. When the two forces had collided, the air currents in the main hall of the Emperor Grand Palace had surged and swirled everywhere. It was as if it had become the center of a storm in a vast ocean. Even with Liangpan and Zhu Hongwu's cultivation, they felt their footing wavering for an instant. The Emperor Grand Palace is a treasure made by humans after all. Facing the power of heaven and earth like Jade Capital Mountain, which is close to the creation of an area, we can't fight head-on. We have to use divine arts to restrain it, Liangpan said slowly. Zhu Hongwu's gaze was fixed on Jade Capital Mountain, and he clenched his fists tightly. When your majesty reaches the 3rd level of the primordial spirit realm, or when you refine Yu De Minghua as the source of power for the Emperor Grand Palace, no matter which method succeeds, you can fight with Jade Capital Mountain. With both methods, our chances of victory will increase. Liangpan nodded his head. That's right. Now isn't the time to become enemies with Xianmen Tianzong. He controlled the Emperor Grand Palace to flash in the void and pick up a cloud forest tree. He then broke open the void and returned to the Divine Land. When Lin Feng and Liangpan collided, The enchantress also decisively grabbed a cloud forest tree and flashed away. At this moment, the cloud forest world had collapsed. The few remaining cloud forest trees also scattered in all directions, leaving the heavenly enchantress Great Sage and Liang Pan to only choose the location of a cloud forest tree and go over to take it and leave. Mount Shu Sword Sect Master Xian Longxing muttered to himself irresolutely, and also picked up a cloud forest tree. While Lin Feng and Liang Pan were fighting, the five-colored golden dragon took the rest of the treasures of the Nine Lights sky-shattering formation into its pouch, and then also swept up a cloud forest tree. The five-colored golden dragon circled in the air for a while, and the light gradually dissipated, turning into a middle-aged man wearing a crown, wearing a dragon robe, and overflowing with the aura of an emperor. This person was about the same age as Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou. His facial features were completely different, but his temperament was extremely similar. They were both emperors who ruled over the world and held the universe in their hands. He was none other than the current emperor of Great Qin Dynasty, Emperor Qin Stonefeather. His figure gradually vanished into the void, avoiding the threat of the power of the world's destruction. His eyes flashed with an incomprehensible glow. Emperor Grand Palace, and if I refine you to Minghua, it will indeed be a troublesome matter. The treasure of our great Qin that suppresses the fate of the empire needs to be repaired as soon as possible. After wiping out those influential families, we should have enough resources. Stonefeather took one last look at the cloud formed by Yan Nanlai's magic power, and Xian Longxing who was standing quietly in the void. He then looked at Jade Capital Mountain. Xianmen Tianzong. His figure quickly vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, Yan Nanlai and Xian Longxing's attention was placed on Jade Capital Mountain, that celestial mountain that looked fine even though it was in the middle of the terrifying calamity of the dimensional world's destruction. The mysterious sky treasure tree at the peak of the mountain flashed with precious light, and Lin Feng drove Jade Capital Mountain back into the void. In the cloud formed by Yan Nanlai's magic power, Xianlin Taoist and Yan Mingyue stood side by side. Beside them was a huge cloud forest tree that was shrouded in the white clouds. It looked much smaller than before. Xianlin Taoist took a look at Yan Mingyue and slowly said, "Well done." Yan Mingyue smiled slightly. She had traveled with Lin Feng previously, and when Lin Feng had led his disciples to uproot the cloud forest tree, she had followed along and harvested a cloud forest tree. Yan Nanlai's cloud gradually retracted, and he also left the void realm to face Qin Mu from afar. Xian Longxing's figure also vanished into the void as he returned to the divine land. Yan Mingyue and Xianlin Taoist looked at Xian Longxing's gradually blurring figure. At the very beginning, Xian Longxing fought with the master of Xian sect, delaying his chance to snatch the treasure. But later on, why didn't he make a move? Other than getting a cloud forest tree, wouldn't he have made a wasted trip? In the white cloud, a clear voice rang out faintly. His harvest is much more than you guys expected. Chapter 465. Hearing Yan Nanlai's words, Yan Mingyue immediately shut up, while the Xianlin Taoist appeared much more distant. Yan Nanlai was a conservative, while he was a radical. Their paths were different, but the Xianlin Taoist still maintained the most basic respect for Yan Nanlai. Silently he listened to Yan Nanlai's words. This time Shushan's gains might be even greater than ours. Silently, Yan Nanlai said, "Through the contest with the master of the Mystic Gate, Xian Longxing saw a brand new path. A path where the heavenly immortal sword qi had already reached its end, but a new path has been born. The heavenly immortal sword qi is indeed the #1 sword Tao of our great heaven primordial world. It has already elaborated on the profundities of the sword Tao to the extreme, but it has also lost its direction of advancement. Today, however, Xian Longxing saw the possibility of the heavenly immortal sword qi taking another step forward." Hearing this, not just Yan Mingyue, but even the third-tier primordial spirit transformation realm Taishu Temple's Grand Elder, Xianlin Taoist, turned solemn. Taishu Temple had been in contact with the Shushan sword sect for tens of thousands of years. In the Divine Land, other than Shushan itself, Taishu Temple definitely understood the heavenly immortal sword qi the best. Both the Xianlin Taoist and Yan Mingyue knew the power of the heavenly immortal sword qi. In the cloudy forest realm, Xian Longsheng had only shown a small part of his strength. Now that they knew the possibility of the heavenly immortal sword qi taking another step forward, how could they not know what this meant? Slowly the Xianlin Taoist said, "The master of the mystic gate. Is his sword Dao cultivation really that powerful?" Yan Nanlai answered calmly, "In terms of sword Dao cultivation alone, I do not think he can defeat Xian Longsheng. However, his sword Dao has surpassed the original boundaries of the great heaven primordial world. This is for sure." The Xianlin Taoist slowly closed his eyes. With just one exchange, it is impossible for Xian Longsheng to break through the current limits of the heavenly immortal sword qi. He will try to steal the master of the mystic gate. There will definitely be a battle between Mount Shu and Xianmen Tianzong. Yan Mingyue gently tucked her hair behind her ear and said, "Eldest brother intended to deploy Xianmen Tianzong to restrict the Shushan sword sect, but now it seems that there is no need to worry. Originally, I thought that there was still a gap between Xianmen Tianzong and the Mount Shu sword sect. But now, it seems that the master of the celestial sect of wonders is truly unfathomable. Previously, no one would have thought that he was actually a great sword cultivator." Slowly, Yan Mingyue said, "Disciple originally intended to probe his foundation previously, wanting to see just what quality that magic treasure of his refined from the vermilion flame demon pupil is. But previously, the situation in the Cloud Forest world was too urgent. In order to uproot the Cloud Forest tree, I ended up missing the opportunity." Xianlin Taoist closed his eyes and said indifferently, "So what if I did? Even if he is only a qi condensation cultivator, it does not change the fact that he already has the ability to threaten the Mount Shu sword sect. This is the real thing. The lower his cultivation, it only means that his potential is stronger, which means that the others should feel more pressure." Yan Mingyue smiled slightly and said, "Disciple will feel more and more ashamed, feeling that all my years of cultivation have been for nothing." Xianlin Taoist had a smile that was yet not a smile on his face, but he didn't say a word. The white cloud swept both of them up and returned to the divine land. Yan Nanlai's voice came from the cloud. 9 lights heaven collapsing formation, and Yude Minghua have appeared one after another. The abilities of Golden Peng and Heavenly Enchantress have increased, and the demon race will definitely make a move. Heaven Primordial Great World is destined to be in turmoil again, so our Taishu Temple needs to make preparations early. The rise of Xianmen Tianzong might not be a bad thing." Xianlin Taoist and Yan Mingyue nodded silently. Yan Mingyue looked into the sky and pondered in her heart. "Master of the celestial sect of wonders, Lin Feng, what kind of influence will you bring to this heaven primordial great world?" The same question was swirling in the minds of everyone else. In the vast land of heaven wasteland, a ray of golden light streaked across the horizon and instantly traversed tens of thousands of miles. It landed in a huge mountain range, and there were numerous huge bird nests built there. One of them was the largest and shone resplendently with golden light. The bird nest didn't look simple at all. Instead, it looked grand and majestic and imposing. The air of an emperor was on full display. The golden light landed in the nest and revealed the appearance of Golden Peng Great Sage. After he landed, he opened his mouth and spat out Great Sage Qiongqi, Golden Peng Tianluan, and the rest of the great demons. A black dot flew out from Golden Peng Great Sage's mouth and landed in front of Great Sage Qiongqi. The periphery of the formation diagram has been separated, but the core is still there. You can use the core to deduce the parts that have been separated. I will help you find the materials to set up the formation again. Everything is ready. Great Sage Qiongqi put away the formation diagram and nodded calmly. Rock Emperor, Golden Peng Tianluan, Sea Dragon Eagle, and the rest of the great demons had solemn expressions. For Yude Minghua, Golden Peng Great Sage had paid a huge price. The 9 lights heaven-shattering formation had been broken. Although it could be set up again, it would undoubtedly take a lot of effort. Out of the dozens of cloud forest trees, he only managed to get 2, which was even more heart-wrenching. Even though he had succeeded in sacrificing Yude Minghua, he couldn't enjoy it alone. It didn't matter that the Great Zhou Empire had gotten a portion, but the crucial point was that the Enchantress had gotten a portion as well. This was a little hard to accept. Golden Peng Great Sage took a look at them. His black and golden eyes were cold and calm without any fluctuations. He said indifferently, "No matter." Light suddenly flashed in his eyes, which then crumbled and turned into primordial chaos. Golden Peng Tianluan and the rest of the great sages of the demon race were all astonished. Even Great Sage Qiongqi was astonished. His gaze then became incomparably passionate. "This is the Book of Primordial Chaos?" Golden Peng Great Sage said slowly. Yu Minghua has fused the true spirit of the heavenly enchantress with its demonic power. It's still quite difficult to deduce the complete Book of Primordial Chaos, but as long as there's enough time, it won't be a problem for me. Smiles instantly appeared on the faces of Golden Peng Tianluan and the rest of the great demons. If they could obtain the Book of Primordial Chaos, all their previous efforts would have been worth it. There wasn't much joy in Golden Peng Great Sage's gaze. He looked back at the void, and Lin Feng's relaxed appearance and the majestic white jade immortal mountain appeared in his mind. His thoughts were a million thoughts. When I enter the divine land in the future, this person will probably be the biggest variable. Almost at the same time, the Enchantress, Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou, and Emperor Qin's Stone Feather were thinking nonstop. To them, no matter what plan they made or what strategy they thought of, Xianmen Tianzong would become an existence that they had to consider and couldn't avoid. What kind of changes will Lin Feng, the master of Xian Gate, and his sect add to the great heaven primordial world? Lin Feng, who was on everyone's mind, was sitting on Jade Capital Mountain. He was also thinking about the consequences of his trip to the Cloud Forest realm. The sacred emperor of the last generation of the demon race, Yudu's great divine art, Yudu Minghua, had reappeared in the world and landed in the hands of the Enchantress, Golden Peng Great Sage, and the Great Zhou Empire. In terms of relationship and geography, the Great Zhou Empire and Lin Feng both belonged to the Divine Land. They often met each other, so it was easy for them to come into contact and conflict. Jade Capital Mountain and the Grand Imperial Palace had clashed head-on when they were fighting for the treasure just now. Things without an owner would belong to whoever was capable, and everyone would fight for it based on their own abilities. That wasn't much, and Lin Feng and Liang Pan wouldn't take it to heart. After today they would still be allies and enemies. However, because of Yu Hongyan's hatred for his country and family, and the grudge between Zhu Yi and Zhu Honggu, no matter if it was Lin Feng or Liang Pan, they could all foresee that Xianmen Tianzong and the Great Zhou Empire would have a conflict in the future. Under such circumstances, the growth of the power of the Great Zhou Empire wasn't good news for Lin Feng. However, Yudu Minghua was the supreme power of the demon world, so even if the human cultivators obtained it, they wouldn't be able to control it as they wished. When this thing landed in Liang Pan's hands, he could only refine it to become the power source of the Grand Imperial Palace, increasing the power of this super magic treasure. On the other hand, the Enchantress and Golden Peng Great Sage of Heaven Wasteland Vast Land didn't seem to have any conflicts in the short term, but after obtaining Yudu Minghua, there were many hidden dangers. After they completely refined the divine light, their individual abilities would definitely rise drastically, and the Enchantress, who had mastered the Book of Primordial Chaos, was already a heaven-bestowed genius with powerful abilities. Lin Feng suspected that if she was given enough time, could she use Yudu Minghua to reverse-engineer the trick to the first scroll of Heavenly Tao Demon Scriptures? It wasn't too difficult to use spells to derive divine arts, but he had never heard of anyone succeeding in reverse-engineering divine arts. However, the most terrifying thing in this world was the word "what if." Lin Feng had also seen the scene of Golden Peng Great Sage splitting up the Nine Lights Heaven Crumbling formation. He believed that Golden Peng Great Sage, who had obtained the core of the inner ring, would still be able to expand the complete formation map with time. However, he didn't know how much he would gain from the Taishu Temple, the Enchantress, and the Great Qin Empire. Among them, the one that was worth paying attention to was the Great Qin Empire. It looked like it was the most low-profile, but Lin Feng had learned from a special channel that Emperor Qin's Stone Feather was preparing an extremely terrifying secret weapon. The incomplete formation map in the outer ring, shouldn't be able to deduce the complete 9 lights heaven-crumbling formation. But he might be able to find out the marvel of activating the huge power of the 9 stars. In that case, he might be able to complete the secret treasure of the Great Qin Empire earlier. If that was the case, Liang Pan wouldn't be able to relax. His Grand Imperial Palace would have the best opponent. As Lin Feng was thinking, he suddenly felt that the cloud forest tree that he had plucked had some strange movements. He couldn't help but laugh. No matter what happens to them, I've earned big this time. The cyclic purple qi swallowed and released 4 cloud forest trees. These cloud forest trees were originally covered with mushrooms. They were all clones formed by Lady Umbrella's demonic power. When Lin Feng and the rest were plucking the trees, Sword Light opened up a path and forced Lady Umbrella's demonic power to retreat. Now the mushrooms on the trees had all disappeared, revealing the originally black tree trunk and emerald green leaves. Only one cloud forest tree was an exception. On a certain part of the tree trunk, there were a few mushrooms that were imprisoned by the purple qi. They were left behind by Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at these mushrooms and slowly said, "Lady Umbrella, welcome to my Jade Capital Mountain as a guest. I hope that one day, your true self will be able to come here." The ochre-brown mushrooms trembled slightly and transformed into the ochre-clothed old woman that Lady Umbrella usually displayed. She stood beside the cloud forest tree and sighed. "Greetings to the Master of Taoist Xianmen. If the Master of Taoist Xianmen wishes for the fairy spirit dew, this clone of mine is barely able to activate it. However, I had provided it to the Golden Rock Great Sage in the dimensional space. In this aspect, the true self and the clone are one. Therefore, the next time the fairy spirit dew is produced, it will take a long time. I hope that the Master of Taoist Xianmen will not blame me." Lin Feng smiled indifferently. "Lady Umbrella, you don't have to be so courteous. Feel free to stay here." Chapter 466. When Lin Feng was uprooting the cloud forest tree, he purposely captured one of Lady Umbrella's doppelgangers. He was after the snow dew of fairy spirit. Even though Lin Feng did not personally witness the scene of Lady Umbrella activating the snow dew of immortal spirit, but after the snow dew of immortal spirit was born, the fragrance that lingered in the air was immediately noticed by Lin Feng. After checking the system, he was pleasantly surprised to find out that this was actually an extremely rare treasure of the world. It could be of great help to primordial soul realm cultivators when they were making a breakthrough, greatly increasing the success rate of breaking through. Naturally, Lin Feng would not let go of such a good thing. When his mana came into contact with the mushroom formed by Lady Umbrella's doppelganger, he immediately understood that Lady Umbrella was the source of the snow dew of fairy spirit. Hence, when he was uprooting the cloud forest tree, he purposely captured one of Lady Umbrella's doppelgangers. Lady Umbrella's reaction was also very fast. Seeing that things were not going well, she quickly retracted her own demonic power. Hence, Yan Mingyue and the rest were unable to capture her doppelgangers. Only Lin Feng was faster and managed to capture one of them. Lady Umbrella was well aware of Lin Feng's intentions in detaining her doppelganger. She was also very straightforward and admitted to it. After all, she had just activated the snow dew of fairy spirit for the Golden Rock Great Sage. Even if she were to be tortured, she would not be able to extract any more snow dew of fairy spirit. Her doppelgangers could activate the snow dew of fairy spirit just like her main body. However, they were symbiotic. Once one of them activated the snow dew, they would not be able to produce a new precious medicine for a certain period of time. They could only wait together for the next opportunity. Lin Feng understood this as well. He was not in a hurry. He would first capture Lady Umbrella, and then slowly come up with a plan. When it was time to take action, he would have to fight with the Enchantress of Infinite Wasteland. The Enchantress was guarding Lady Umbrella's main body. Naturally, he would not allow Lin Feng to extract the snow dew of fairy spirit so easily. After using his mana to send Lady Umbrella to a stone chamber in a cave on the mountain, Lin Feng once again looked at the cloud forest tree that he had uprooted. Lin Feng thought for a while. Small things will last. I have to leave one intact and try my best to cultivate it. Originally, when the dimensional world was destroyed, the cloud forest tree lost its foundation and soil, so it was hard to avoid being harmed by the world's nirvana. Lin Feng didn't dare to be negligent, using the universe purple chi to pick up a cloud forest tree, and arriving at the Medicine Valley on Jade Capital Mountain. The lucky child was directly taken out of the mysterious Heaventime Light Grotto by him, crying and throwing a tantrum. Lin Feng directly sealed its mouth with true sunfire, and the earthy yellow fat baby immediately beamed with joy as he ate. He only wanted to eat to his heart's content. After he finished eating, he rolled around on the ground in pain while clutching his stomach. Then he turned into a pile of spirit soil. After being nurtured by Lucky Baby a few times, the spiritual energy in the medicinal valley was already quite abundant. At this moment, when the Lucky Baby spirit soil was spread on top, it instantly became even more fertile. Lin Feng planted the best-looking cloud forest tree in his possession. The roots of the cloud forest tree went deep into the soil. It absorbed Ling Qi and turned it into its own life force. Lin Feng pointed and a green stream of water flew into the soil. It was the moon water. It was good at giving birth. After being absorbed by the cloud forest tree, the Ling Qi in the ancient tree became more abundant. The tree trunk shook. Its leaves fluttered and rustled. It was as if something in deep sleep was waking up. The sound of thunder came from the void. Lin Feng woke up. Under my cultivation, the cloud forest tree is going to regain its consciousness and become a demon. The cloud forest tree had lived in the medium dimension for many years. It had accumulated a large amount of Ling Qi. The amount of Ling Qi in its body was much higher than that of a demon king. It was comparable to a demon race great sage in the undying demon soul realm. It was just that there was no void thunder tribulation in the medium dimension. It was unable to form its nascent soul, and stayed at the peak of the demon martial realm. In the end, it fell into the hands of Golden Rock Great Sage and Cheongqi Great Sage. It was like a fat man without strength. It could only be slaughtered. Now that Lin Feng had cultivated it with the moon water and heavenly luck spirit soil, the cloud forest tree was going to regain its consciousness and become a demon. The tree had accumulated too much. Once it became a demon, it would be able to go through the thunder tribulation in the divine land and form its demon nascent soul. After that, the Demon King middle stage and Demon King late stage would be like a hot knife through butter. In the end, it might even break through to the undying demon soul realm. Lin Feng thought about it. With his current strength, even if the cloud forest tree demon formed an undying demon soul, it wouldn't be able to do much. Lin Feng had enough confidence and magnanimity to allow the cloud forest tree demon to exist. But other than the ancient tree in front of him, Lin Feng had almost made arrangements for the other cloud forest trees. He didn't plan to continue planting them. Instead, he wanted to refine them. If the cloudy forest tree in front of him becomes a demon and has its own consciousness, seeing its former kin being refined, it will inevitably become sentimental. Lin Feng is not afraid of him rebelling, but there really is no need to find unnecessary trouble for himself. In the future, this tree might become a demon, but there was no need for that now. Thinking of this, Lin Feng raised his hand and chopped in the air. Under the effect of the celestial world barrier, the cloud forest tree demon's self-consciousness fell into silence again. The heavenly luck spirit soil turned back into a chubby baby, and went back to sleep in the mysterious Skytime Light Cave. This little rascal was a typical person who wanted to eat all day. After eating, he would exercise a little and then fall asleep. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. He left the Medicine Valley and continued to check his spoils of war. What he was more concerned about was the heavenly scallion golden bead that had suddenly changed. He took it out and observed it in detail. He saw that there was a faint purple light flashing in the originally pure golden mist inside the bead. Lin Feng used his magic power to explore, and discovered that this purple light wasn't Yudu Minghua. To be more accurate, it was more like the aura of Yudu Minghua. However, just the aura alone was enough to make one's heart palpitate. And through this aura, Lin Feng could faintly feel that this heavenly scallion golden bead was truly related to the Yuhuang celestial sea of the past. Lin Feng frowned slightly. Taishu Temple knew of this treasure's existence, but it was understandable for them to treat it as an ordinary treasure. After all, it was only a rumor, and they hadn't come into contact with it. There were many such rumors, and they were all rumors. However, did the enchantress know about it? From how she calculated that great sage Dingwu coveted the wind god sect, she probably knew about the existence of the heavenly scallion golden bead. Why did she let go of this precious bead? Lin Feng's heart stirred slightly. He took out a crystal that was flashing with purple light. It was sparkling and translucent, giving off a faint glow. This was one of the 9 treasures that Golden Rock Great Sage and Great Sage Cheongqi had used to lay out the 9 glory sky-shattering formation. It had fallen into Lin Feng's hands. The heavenly mirage golden bead was placed together with the purple crystal. Instantly, the purple light in the bead flashed violently, as though it wanted to rush out of the heavenly mirage golden bead and meet up with the purple crystal. The light on the surface of the purple crystal also blazed intensely, flashing non-stop. Lin Feng's gaze narrowed slightly. He used his magic power to examine the purple crystal, and his consciousness suddenly felt a chill. It wasn't truly cold, but the purple crystal was actually a rare item of pure yin. It didn't have any yang qi at all. In heaven and earth, although items of pure yin and yang weren't unique, they were extremely rare. For example, the great yin true water was extremely yin and soft, but when yin was extreme, it would give birth to yang, which also contained yang qi. However, the purple crystal was condensed from pure yin qi, and even if it was used to the extreme, it wouldn't turn into yang. The great Tao was all things, and yin and yang coexisted. This was the principle of the heavenly Tao, and all creations couldn't avoid it. However, there were always exceptions to everything, and the rare few items of pure yang and pure yin were special cases. They were like the 2 extremes of heaven and earth, and although they seemed to defy common sense, they actually faintly conformed with the heavenly Tao. The purple crystal was such a treasure, and what was even more amazing was that it was related to Yuduming Hua. Purple light flashed in the heavenly mirage golden bead, and a terrifying aura spread out from it. When it came into contact with the purple crystal, it instantly shone brightly. Lin Feng's consciousness swept over, and images instantly appeared in front of his eyes. There was an incomparably vast palace that had a majestic aura. It was simple and desolate, and it could be seen that no one had lived in it for a long time. However, the palace didn't seem old at all, as if there was a powerful invisible force protecting it. Suddenly, a golden-winged rock entered the palace, and its body shrunk greatly. It landed on the ground, and a pair of cold black eyes flashed with a demonic golden light as it stared straight at Lin Feng. Actually, it wasn't looking at Lin Feng but at the purple crystal. The images that Lin Feng was seeing were precisely the experiences recorded by the purple crystal. And this golden-winged rock, Lin Feng could recognize it with a single glance. It was the Golden Rock Great Sage that he had just met. The Golden Rock Great Sage slowly walked closer, and his deep voice echoed in the palace. Netherflower purple crystal, an accessory that Yu Huang wore in the past, maybe. In the next instant, the Netherflower purple crystal was collected by the Golden Rock Great Sage, and the image in front of Lin Feng returned to darkness. Looks like that palace is the side palace of Yu Huang's celestial sea. Long Yi said that the clue that the Golden Rock Great Sage had obtained was this Netherflower purple crystal in front of me. Recalling the conversation with Long Yi previously, Lin Feng understood. He examined the Netherflower purple crystal in detail, and he discovered that other than the extremely dense yin qi, there was nothing else. Looks like the things inside have already been purified by the Golden Rock Great Sage, so he handed this item to Cheongqi to lay out the 9 lights heaven-shattering formation. As Lin Feng was thinking, he saw the purple light in the heavenly scallion golden bead flickering non-stop, and it gradually became weaker. Meanwhile, the terrifying aura of the Yudu Netherflower purple crystal had completely poured into the Netherflower purple crystal. Oh, looks like there's more. Lin Feng's gaze flickered, and he weighed the Netherflower purple crystal in his hand. I'll slowly study it in the future. This kind of item of purine isn't common, and it can be used for my life and death formation. The life and death formation had a layer of transformation in the 6 paths of life and death, and it was called the transformation of yin and yang. The most suitable item to lay out the formation was a treasure of pure yin and pure yang. In the 9 lights heaven-shattering formation, This treasure originally existed as a vessel for the power of the moon and moon. Lin Feng smiled, and his gaze moved from the netherflower purple crystal to a seal platform. This seal platform looked ordinary, and its color was pitch black, but it gave off an unshakable and powerful concept that suppressed everything. It was incomparably heavy. It was as if the peak of an immemorial divine mountain had been shaved off, and it could overturn the 9 heavens and suppress the 10 earths. Lin Feng said with a smile, "Golden Rock, Qiongqi, you guys are truly too courteous. How can I accept this?" Chapter 467. Lin Feng had to admit that the treasures used by Golden Rock Great Sage and Qiongqi Great Sage to set up the 9 Glory Sky Collapsing Formation were of a much higher quality than the treasures on the North Wind Sea. In the 9 Glory Sky Collapsing Formation, the square stamp platform was the vessel for the power of Tun Xing. It was a magic treasure embryo. If he was right, this square stamp platform was indeed the peak of an ancient divine mountain. The 9 treasures used to set up the 9 Glory Sky Collapsing Formation were of different quality. For example, the solar treasure was a solar essence stone, the fluorescent fire treasure was the essence of Qianyuan fire, and the wood treasure was the root of a 10,000-year-old ancient willow. Although they were all good, they were obviously inferior to the dark flower amethyst and the square stamp platform. When Lin Feng collected the treasures, he picked the best ones. He had 5 of the 9 glory treasures, and each of them was extraordinary. He had really made a fortune. It's really heavy. Lin Feng grinned. Just this square seal platform. It doesn't look big, but it's much heavier than the cloud forest tree that's thousands of feet tall. Lin Feng can only barely lift it with his own mana. Looking at the square stamp platform, Lin Feng thought for a while, and took out his Kunpeng Palace. Then he took out the broken Tianfeng treasure fan from Dao Master Tianfeng. He put the 3 things side by side, and tried to figure out the different power concepts in them. After a while an idea came to Lin Feng. He smiled and put the things away. Other than the netherflower amethyst and the black stamp platform, Lin Feng's gaze turned and landed on a stone tablet. This is also one of the 9 luminaries' treasures. It is set up in the 9 luminaries' sky-shattering formation, and is used to bear the endless star power of hidden star Ketu. Among the 9 glory treasures, Ketu was the opposite of the lunar star. It was the dark star of the lunar star, and contained infinite disasters. And this stone tablet in front of Lin Feng gave him an ominous feeling of disaster. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows. Oh, this is not a treasure from the demon realm, but a treasure refined by a human cultivator. Or is it a magic treasure? Lin Feng's divine sense swept out, but he could not sense the existence of the magic treasure's primordial spirit. But it doesn't look like it was damaged. The primordial spirit of a magic treasure should not have been destroyed. Its power and concept are both genuine magic treasures. He sent his magic power into it, only to feel his consciousness enter an endless darkness. There was no sound, no light, no sense of the existence of space, and no sense of the flow of time. There was only a boundless fear and the aura of a great disaster. It was like a world without any light, plunged into eternal darkness. When Lin Feng's magic power penetrated deep into it, he could faintly feel a consciousness that had fallen into a deep slumber. The other party was in a deep slumber, but because of Lin Feng's arrival, there were faint signs of it waking up. I see. The power and concept contained in this magic treasure is eternal night and endless sleep. The magic treasure's primordial spirit is also in a state of automatic sleep. It will not wake up unless it is disturbed by external forces. Lin Feng understood. He looked at the stone tablet carefully, and saw that there were only 2 big words written on it. Eternal night. What intrigued him the most was that this magic treasure was actually refined using a human cultivator's Devil Dao cultivation method. The divine land was now prosperous, and the demonic path was declining. The demonic path sects were not having a good time. They were all rats that everyone wanted to beat up. Even a super sect like the reincarnation sect was washed clean. As for the other demonic sects, even if they had a few powerful figures and could shine for a while, they could not avoid the fate of being suppressed and destroyed. Therefore, in the vast land of the divine continent and the human cultivation world, the devil sex Dao techniques, magic treasures, and magic tools were already relatively rare. A magic treasure of the devil path like this, which still had the original spirit of the magic treasure, and its power was intact, could be said to be quite rare. Lin Feng guessed that this was most likely left behind in the eternal night devil steel, when a primordial soul expert of the demonic path died in the infinite wasteland during the war between the two worlds. In the end, this eternal night devil steel ended up in the hands of the Golden Rock Great Sage, or the Qiongqi Great Sage. Then, it was used as a magic treasure to set up the 9 glory sky crumbling array. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng sealed the eternal night devil steel with the cyclic purple qi. After putting away the eternal night devil steel, Lin Feng picked up a blue pearl. This pearl was much bigger than the heavenly scarlet golden pearl. The heavenly scarlet golden pearl was only the size of a fist, but this pearl looked like the crystal ball that the witch used for divination in Lin Feng's previous life. Inside the pearl, blue light surged, and one could vaguely hear the sound of the rising and falling tides. This pearl seemed to contain the water of the 5 lakes and 4 oceans. Lin Feng scanned it with his divine sense, and knew that the water-type spiritual energy contained in it was absolutely shocking. This thing is a little familiar. I seem to have seen it in the system before. As Lin Feng thought about it, his consciousness entered the system. After checking, he indeed saw the same thing. Water Spirit Heaven Pearl. I said that I should have seen it before. Lin Feng held the Water Spirit Sky Pearl in his palm, bringing it up to his eyes and looking at it, slightly nodding his head. And to people who cultivate water Dao techniques, its value is probably not lower than a cloud forest tree. However, to Lin Feng, this Water Spirit Heaven Pearl was far less attractive than the other item. That was the last 9 glory treasure that he had obtained. At the same time, it was also the most valuable item. It was also the main target of Lin Feng's trip to the cloudy forest world. A completely pitch-black skeleton of a wild beast. This skeleton was not very large. It was only around 3 meters long. The skeleton was completely black and did not shine. Instead, all light that tried to get close to it would be devoured by this extreme darkness. There was only a small chance of a dark blue aura spiraling around the dark skeleton, and did not dissipate for a long time. Although it was just a skeleton, the powerful aura that it exuded made anyone who saw it feel their heart palpitate. Ordinary people could not even look directly at it. Otherwise, their gaze would be stuck in the dark power concept of the skeleton, until even their soul was devoured. Lin Feng looked at this skeleton, silently laughing. This is exactly his target, an incomparably complete skeleton. Not even missing a toe bone, not even missing a tooth, the skeleton left behind by the great demon Ming Du, who once achieved an indestructible demon soul when he was alive. Ming Du, a primordial great demon king of darkness. It was a super ferocious beast that grasped the most original and strongest dark power concept in the world. It looked like a leopard with a single horn on its head. Its entire body was pitch black and there were stripes of bluish-purple patterns on its body. The Ming Du tribe had almost disappeared in the long river of history. Even in infinite wilderness, there had not been a Ming Du in the world for thousands of years. To be able to obtain such a complete Ming Du skeleton was definitely something that could only be encountered by chance. Lin Feng really could not help but praise Golden Rock Great Sage and Qiongqi Great Sage. Lin Feng used his spiritual power and divine sense to explore the Ming Du skeleton. He did not try to dispel the dark power in the skeleton, but tried to keep his spiritual power peaceful and integrated with the dark world. Sure enough, something strange happened. The darkness that originally contained an endless aura of disaster and destruction suddenly became less terrifying. Instead, it seemed peaceful, auspicious, calm, and even warm. There was no murderous aura, no aura of disaster. The initial ominous feeling that made one's heart palpitate had all disappeared. Lin Feng felt as if he had returned to the state of a fetus and returned to his mother's womb. He was ignorant and had no thoughts, but he was the closest to the Khanate Great Tao. It was as if he had returned to the primordial chaotic darkness before the creation of the world. It nourished the Khanate Qi, nurtured the creation of all living beings, and made perfect preparations for the creation of the world. This was not a false illusion or malicious deception. It was true peace and harmony that nurtured all living beings. So it is like this. My understanding of the darkness is correct. Lin Feng thought silently. The darkness has the power of destruction and silence. It also has the power of transforming all living beings, nurturing creation, and peaceful like the mother of all living beings. The difference was that if you chose to merge with the darkness, then the darkness would be the most benevolent and generous mother. It would help you to cultivate and grow. Here, you would be free, peaceful, and peaceful. But if you tried to destroy the darkness, then the darkness would immediately transform into the cruelest terminator and destroy you. Lin Feng had no doubt that if he dared to use the power of the Buddha's infinite light Buddha scripture, he would immediately be chased to death by the boundless darkness. The entire dark world would go berserk, and it would become the end of the world. With just this thought in his mind, Lin Feng felt that the power of darkness was about to change. He withdrew his spiritual power from the solitary dark skeleton and meditated for a moment before opening his eyes. Darkness and light are indeed two extremely superior powers. It is very beneficial to comprehend and cultivate. Lin Feng waved his hand and kept the solitary dark skeleton into the diagram of the yin and yang life and death formation. At the same time, he also sent in the pure yin treasure, the dark flower amethyst. With so many good things, my preparation is more adequate, Lin Feng muttered to himself. The system has also saved quite a lot from the lottery. It is enough for me to play a big game. Lin Feng looked at the remaining 3 cloud forest trees and picked up one of them, weighing it in his hand. This one then. Other than the many treasures and immortal spirit snow dew, the biggest harvest this time was these cloud forest trees. Other than the one with the best appearance, the remaining 7 cloud forest trees, Lin Feng planned to directly refine them. The vast amount of spiritual energy in the cloud forest trees would greatly reduce the cultivation cost of Xianmen Tianzong and the others. Xiao Yan Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao and Yu Hongyan each plucked one. These 4 cloud forest trees belonged to them. How to deal with them was up to them. For Xiao Yan and the others, what they lacked the least was talent and potential. What they lacked the most was time. Given enough time, they could naturally grow to the point where they could blind everyone's eyes. It was just that the spiritual energy in the cloud forest trees was too abundant. With their current cultivation, it was still too early for them to absorb all of it. But it would undoubtedly speed up their cultivation process. Wang Lin and Yang Qing were not on the mountain this time, so they temporarily missed this opportunity. It was fine. Lin Feng specially left behind the cloud forest tree with the best appearance for a long time. As for the remaining 3 cloud forest trees, Lin Feng would also use one for himself. The other 2 had other uses. For example, the elder of the Great Thunderclap Monastery, Monk Dade, who was on his last breath and his primordial spirit golden body was almost destroyed. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.